Well met. This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, or possibly this week, Born to be Jeff, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap. I'm your host, Blutrane, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, NateWolfeTCG and ZombiesGoNomNom. We are three avid fans of the Marvel Snap card game, and we're here to share our insights, opinions, and strategies with you. Whether you're a beginner or a veteran, a collector or a competitor, a hero or a villain, this podcast is for you. In each episode, we'll discuss the latest news, updates, and events in the Marvel Snap universe. We'll also review the newest cards, analyze the current meta, and give you tips and tricks on how to improve your gameplay. And, of course, we'll have some fun along the way with guest appearances, trivia, questions, and more. We do trivia.
Apparently.
So,
You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, and Twitch when we're live. Just search for Born to be Cosmo and subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on Twitter at Born to be Cosmo. For more updates and interactions, we'd love to hear from you. So join us as we explore the amazing world of Marvel Snap, where you can collect, battle, and snap with your favorite Marvel characters. It's time to be Born to be Cosmo.
This episode brought to you by Skynet.
Yeah, so I'm going to level with y'all. I had a pretty rough week, both physically, mentally. Even now, I'm probably not 100%. I had to take some medication yesterday. And I really had a hard time getting motivated to put together the show. And like I said before, the show started, kind of was exposed to AI in an unexpected way this week through a documentary, and kind of both out of curiosity and morbid curiosity, produced most of this show using ChatGPT-4, including that introduction. I didn't really have to change a whole lot.
Mega crap.
Crap or not, I was kind of
It's actually pretty good.
impressed and horrified all at the same time. So usually our introduction isn't as cornball, but that's the ChatGPT-4 elaborative introduction to the Born to be Cosmo podcast.
It's time to Born to be Cosmo.
It's time to that was like where oh, maybe a robot did write this. So
Brodebot.
yeah, Brodebot. But I'll tell you what. The one thing that wasn't created by ChatGPT-4 is something we want to preview here tonight, which I'm really excited for everyone to see. So ZombiesGoNomNom has a YouTube channel, which you all should subscribe to right now. I'm putting that in the chat. And in addition to doing the news and gameplay videos, started doing this lore series with Arrow a couple weeks back. And the new one's dropping tomorrow for Jeff the Shark, and we wanted to preview it for you right here, right now.
All right, here goes.
Yeah, let's check it out. Today, we are looking at a brand new card who has captivated a lot of attention from the community. Jeff has been an object of attention since he was first data mined last month, not only for being a potentially powerful addition to the game, but also because he's simply a wholesome little guy. I mean, just look at him. Even in the announcement video for this month's Animals Assemble season, Jeff stole the show in the developer update video, and many players couldn't wait to get their hands on this legendary little land shark. But who exactly is Jeff? Where did he come from, and what is his current place in the Marvel Universe? Jeff the Baby Landshark first appeared in West Coast Avengers issue number 7 in 2018. The Landsharks were a hybrid shark created by MODOK that could survive both on land and in water. These beasts were being used to attack the West Coast Avengers, who had been captured by MODOK and other supervillains. The Avengers escape their captivity and fight off the sharks, electrifying many of them and draining the water from the area. But then, it is revealed these sharks have no problem without their water. The heroes fight off the land sharks and eventually force MODOK and his allies into retreating from the battle. One of the West Coast Avengers, Gwenpool, discovers a baby land shark after all the chaos. She immediately falls in love with him, decides to name him Jeff and wants to take him home as a pet. Jeff and Gwen get along swimmingly right off the bat, and he quickly becomes a welcome addition to their team.
Ayo, that was really good. I liked it.
It's fun, right?
Great work.
Yeah, I'm
So just like
pretty happy with it.
I just want to
just
watch
like
more
with
though.
yeah, just like with the Arrow one, it's like it stops and you're like,
Where's the rest?
where's the rest? Well, the rest will be published tomorrow to your YouTube. What time's it going up?
Probably around noonish is the plan. So probably around 12 p.m. EST. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Put a lot of. I love doing the lore series. They take a lot more time because it's a lot more involved in the stuff I normally do in terms of like the editing, and I also have to like learn all the lore because I know some of the stuff, but I don't know most of the things about these more obscure characters, and that's kind of the fun of it for me in a way. Is it gives me an excuse to do something I'd otherwise like to do, which is like read up some of these cool characters, and then get to kind of make my own little thing out of their story.
The West Coast Avengers is like the worst superhero team of all time. Like it was like the running joke of the Marvel universe for like years and years and years. Like it was the team that like you're on the Avengers, but you would say like, oh yeah, I'm part of the Avengers. West Coast, and like everyone's like, it was like it's the butt crack of the Avengers. I mean, this is like the new iteration of it, right? With the new characters,
it was
and
newer.
stuff. So it's
a little bit more recent.
The like West Coast Avengers from the 70s was like it was like Tigra and Hawkeye and stuff like all the like C-list Avengers were so great. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, West Coast the best coast except for like, I guess Avengers and jazz. But
hey, I represent the West Coast over here. It's great. I'm West Coast best coast for sure.
Yeah, I'll never go back. So yeah, a lot of hard work and preparation went into preparing that video. But you know what? A lot of hard work and preparation did not go into was testing the much anticipated card Kitty Pryde. So gonna start by talking a little bit about Kitty Pryde. And a little bit of good news, bad news. I think on the balance.
Wait, did somebody say news?
This just in. Breaking news. Live from the Daily Bugle. Parker!
All right, continue.
I did say news. I was actually worried you were gonna play like the Born to Be Wild bumper, so I was like ready to like whip. So it was the Bugle. It was good. We're good. They played that thing 3 times last night just to razz me.
Oh, Hydra, let's get in chat too.
Yeah. Oh, hi Hydra.
I love it.
Yeah, so on April 17th, after a long silence, Second Dinner finally had some news regarding the much-anticipated return of Kitty Pryde to Marvel Snap. As you may recall, Kitty Pryde was released on March 28th with much anticipation from the player base. It subsequently had to be disabled less than 2 days after release due to game-breaking bugs. Once disabled, Kitty Pryde was no longer purchasable in the token shop, nor could she be pulled from the collector reserves. Unfortunately, the news was not announcing Kitty Pryde's imminent return, but that she would be on the sidelines for another month until the May patch. So for those who own Kitty Pryde, you'll be able to look but not touch for probably about another month. That's when the patch comes out, is usually the second to third week of the month. But they did announce that those that did manage to snag a copy of Kitty would be getting compensated.
Yeah, right. The QA must have been bugged, right? There's no way, like if they tested it and then they released it, and then but if they were saying that it was working fine in testing, then what, did they release a different version or what? Because it was clearly not working, whatever they released. Like it was like game breaking bugs. It wasn't an interaction here. It was like locking people out and stuff. So that's.
So I mean, if you want the inside like hypothesis as to why it worked fine in testing and why it didn't work upon release. Generally, as we've talked about in past episodes, it's very evident to those in the industry that they operate using an agile-based methodology for a service-based delivery. And so they have different environments, right? They've got a development environment, they probably have a certification environment, and then they have production, which is what we interact with every day, right? So probably what ended up happening was that when they tested it in their cert environment, it did work fine, but when they pushed the change out to prod, probably they didn't push all the changes that were in cert out to prod.
Yeah.
And so that delta probably is where all those bugs were introduced. It's also possible that, they kind of said that they'd have to change the core mechanics of the game. So it's possible that other things that were coming up behind might have broken it as well.
Yeah.
But I think that like we do sneer at the fact that they claim they tested it and then it released
Well-
in a game-breaking state. It is possible. It's kind of still bad, but in the realm of how things function, I do think that it's. This is the problem when you're kind of operating in this fashion.
I will also say, like, small indie team or whatever. Like, if I've got a team of 20 people testing, is much different than like how many million people playing it. And like,
there'll always be some stuff that comes up, right? Like we see that with all types of games. It was just particularly bad how game breaking it was, and nobody even noticed, right, who wasn't having it done to them. Like we talked about last time, like playing the card and seeing people disconnect, and you just thought they were like cube donating or booster farming or something. It's like, no, you just locked them out of the game for like half an hour. You didn't even know it. Like
it happened. It happened. I mean,
pretty frequently. It
yeah.
wasn't that like it was some rare thing. Like I know quite a few people it happened to.
So
Rip.
yeah, so they although they do automation testing, so I don't buy the scale argument. But enough nerd talk. Let's get to the important part, which is what's in it for me. What am I getting as a Kitty Pryde purchaser?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, this is pretty interesting. So I guess I'll just read the update. I don't know. I don't read the update. Basically, we're all getting the card for free. They're reworking the card. And they're compensating people. So players that purchase Kitty Pryde, they will get 8,000 collector's tokens. So you get your original 6,000 back and then some. And it sounds like that's already gone out. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
That is already. If you check your mobile inbox, I don't know. What you're supposed to do if you're on PC.
Well, yeah, you got it right. It looks like.
Yeah, but you can't check it on PC, right? This only works on the mobile devices, or there are emulators. Some of the emulators have it. I don't know which do. I think BlueStacks might, but I'm not. It does.
If you're only on PC, it's really easy to set up BlueStacks. Like I did it last night to play a game, and it just took like 3 seconds.
It's very easy to use.
It's just not ideal though that you have to do like a whole nother software to get the thing if you don't have a phone that can run
minimally viable product. That's Marvel Snap. So PC client
game of the year. That's right.
Someday soon.
So the message in the inbox says compensation, Kitty Pryde compensation. We're sorry for the recent issues with Kitty Pryde. She will be returning in a future patch. For now, here's 8,000 tokens and Kitty Pryde avatar as a thank you for your patience. And so that went out. And then, So, yeah, basically. And then everyone else, when the card is re-released, future date, TBD, we will all be getting it for free, which is kind of cool. Players who did not have the chance to purchase Kitty Pryde prior to her being disabled, you're just SOL. So sorry, you can't buy it now. It's not purchasable.
Until she comes back. And they changed the card, too. They had to actually change the card.
To
make it work again, which is... I don't think everyone was thrilled about it.
It's kind of a shame because I think it was pretty hype. And unfortunately, I was saving my tokens for like Thanos and Galactus at the time, so I didn't purchase her when she came out. So I haven't had a chance to play with her. But the previous design, right? So she was a 1/0, and you had the option of returning it to your hand and gaining 2 power. And now it sounds like it automatically. So now she's a 1/0, same stat line. When this returns to your hand, it gains +2 power. Returns at the start of each turn, so you don't get the choice. It automatically bounces, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it just goes back every turn. So this kind of affects the card in decks that you were utilizing Kitty Pryde, but you didn't necessarily want to do it every turn, or more importantly, the final turn, like decks with 6-drops. Like I know I played her in, I think it was like the Dino Darkhawk list. And you have Doom in that, and so sometimes you want to play Doom on the final turn, and it's like, well, if you spent all this mana pumping up your Kitty, and now you can't play her on the final turn if you're playing like a 6-drop. So I do think there are going to be a few decks that end up cutting her because of that, but she's still, like, the intent is still there, and she's still really good in the deck she was good in before, but you're going to see her less than I thought.
Yeah, that's one disadvantage. The other change that I think actually might even be a harder hit than it returning automatically is the wave interaction. So before, if you were to play wave on 5, on 6, Kitty Pryde, if he had it returned, would only cost 1. Now she'll cost
4.
4.
Rip.
So and it's funny too, because we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but other cards that get around the wave set cost of 4, like Stature and Miles Morales and
Death. Yeah.
We've been playing a lot of those lately. It's funny though, the rate we're going, maybe wave will be nerfed by the time Kitty Pryde comes back, and it won't matter. But
I hope not.
I hope not either. But just to say that whole kind of like the weird cost interaction thing also is going to be removed, and that's unfortunate. I think that makes it a much more telegraphed card, and therefore a lot weaker card. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, that play patterns in Marvel Snap that are telegraphed have to be really strong in order to, stay viable. And we'll see. I mean, but everyone's going to get her for free, and I think it'll still be good in Bounce and a few other archetypes. So
Yeah, it's still a good card for sure. It's just it goes from being what I think was going to be like the premier 1-drop that went in like everything. Now it's not going to go in necessarily everything, which on its own maybe isn't a bad thing. Like, did we really need another like kind of better, more flexible Sunspot? Maybe not, as much as I like the card, but I think it's good. It's still good. One thing I think is kind of sad though is like totally aside from how good the card is or isn't, I think it was really fun being able to pick up Kitty and play her somewhere else. It's just like it's a little thing, but to me, it kind of gives you this illusion like you're playing more cards than you actually are. Kind of like the Thanos deck, right? Where it's like you're playing all these little stones and you're getting to do something that you don't normally get to do as much in Snap because you have, the smaller deck. And so I do think losing that is a bit of a shame, because I do think like regardless of like if she's better or worse, the fact that it just automatically goes back and you just play it is a little boring.
Well, you have a little less agency, right? Although it'll still work with bounce cards, right? Like Beast or Falcon.
Yeah, it's actually even a little better. Well, I guess arguably better with them now, because now
she'll get
supposedly she's going to be fixed. So if you bounce her with Beast, then you can play her for 0 for the rest of the game. That was a bug before that wasn't working correctly, and now it sounds like that hopefully will be working correctly when she comes back. So that, I guess, helps mitigate that issue, right? Where you're paying a mana every turn. If she's free every turn, she is just still really good in certain decks, right? So it'll be neat to see. And I had a funny thing happen with this compensation though today, that it was really weird. So I logged into an alt account, which I made like when the game came out. I haven't used it in months. And because I wanted to see what the name of, they offer you 2 different things for the season pass, like premium, and then there's the other one. Like, what's that called? So I logged in to check. I noticed I had the little thing in the inbox. I was like, oh yeah, I got that free variant that they gave out to everybody. But then there was a message about Kitty Pryde compensation. And I was just like, what is this? And it's the same thing I got on my main account, but this account is like level 300. It's not even in pool 3 yet. And it's like, yeah, we're compensating you for Kitty Pryde. Here's 8k tokens and a Kitty avatar. And I have the avatar, but I don't know if the tokens are really there or not, because I don't have access to the token store.
Oh my gosh. I was like, quick spend them before they take them back.
I know, right? And I probably shouldn't even be talking about it. But some guy, I posted it on Twitter because I was like, did something like this happen to anyone else? And someone commented that they had the same thing happen, not for Kitty, but remember when they had to deliver the card back by mail for the Zabu season? Mm-hmm. Apparently somebody who got Infinite on one account but not like their alt, they had the same thing happen where when they switched accounts and they logged on, I don't know if, I guess their theory was the messaging is done by like it knows what device you're on, or it thinks, I don't know. I don't fully understand it. It doesn't seem like it happened to many people, but it's a weird thing.
No. You know what? This makes sense, because like for those of us that have like a tablet and a phone, like I started playing on the phone before the tablet, and I always have to log into my phone to get these things. It never shows up on the tablet. I wonder if there is some there.
Did you get it on your
idea? It was weird.
Did you get it on your main account?
No, so yeah, I already got so the day that went out, I got it on my main account.
I just want to make sure that it didn't
Yeah,
like
it
you
didn't give me
didn't.
the wrong account. No, I would have been pissed. No, I got the normal one, and this was a few days later, right? Because it went out. It says on here the 18th, so 4 days ago it went out. And I logged in. This was just this morning. I logged into my alt because I was trying to see the name of the thing, and I was like, wait, there's not just the free variant, because I saw the inbox and I was like, okay, yeah, they've given us all the free variant. I'll grab that really quick. Not that I play the alt much at all. I just made it for like early game content when the game released. But I was like, what's this? And I redeemed it, and the avatar and the tokens popped up, and I have the avatar equipped, which there's a part of me that doesn't want to upgrade the account because it's like now it's some like niche account, right? Where it's like I have a Kitty Pryde avatar that I don't think you can get at that account level because Pool 5, like, or you don't have the reserves where you get avatars, right? You only have the base ones, I believe, or season pass ones. So I think that's kind of funny, but I'm gonna get to Pool 3 just so I can see.
Hey, see if you got the tokens. I mean,
in there.
crazy.
It was just weird. I thought it was kind of worth bringing up. I mean, I have no idea how it happened, but it was this freak thing.
So what is it called? The Battle Pass.
Oh, it's just the Premium Pass Plus. They just slapped a plus on the end of it, like everything
Premium
nowadays.
Plus. Like
Yeah,
the
Premium
crackers.
Plus, pretty much, yeah. And I was like, all right, well, that's kind of exactly what I thought it was, but I guess I'm glad I logged in to find out.
Let's talk about the compensation real quick, right? So everybody got, everybody that purchased it and then was not able to use it, 8,000 tokens and the avatar. Yay, avatars. What do we think about that? And then everyone else is getting the card for free, which is, I'm frankly kind of happy about because that's one less card that I have to spend money on.
And you get it sooner, right? Because we would have waited for it to drop, 2 months for it to go to Series 4, and even then, Series 4 aren't like overly accessible. They're just better than Series 5.
I just feel bad for the people who had it, like bought it day one, got to play, like experience it a little bit, and then were kind of out. But they compensated, right? You get your tokens back and then some. I think the real losers, like our buddy NHL, who like had it pinned, didn't buy it, and then it's like, cool, I just wasted my time in the shop for a week or whatever,
right? Like because we didn't know if she was coming back soon or not. So people were like, do I unpin her? Do they compensate people who pinned her? I don't think most people thought that was going to happen, but I'm sure some did. It was I think it's the only, like, the compensation itself was generally very good, and I think better than most of us were expecting was going to happen. But I think the only thing that could have been a little bit better is just like knowing a little bit sooner. But at least we know now.
I think,
and there was that person that had the currency, wanted to purchase the card, but couldn't because they didn't like do what we did, Zombies, which was like manipulate the shop in such a way that like, because it was in the game for
random.
about 30 hours. So conceivably, if you to have a lot of Pool 5, Pool 4, maybe even some Pool 3 cards, the way the shop used to work before this last update, she might not have rotated in, even if you had the money to buy her. I'm sure that there's someone that didn't purchase it because it didn't show up, and they're a bit peeved at this. But outside of those very niche situations, I angrily said 2 weeks ago that anything less than a full refund would be unacceptable. I expected 150 credits. So, I mean, obviously this exceeded my expectations. I mean, I'm not happy that it took them so long to announce it. I suspect there was much disagreement as to what they were going to do. And
I imagine
what they were going to do is probably, if we're going to be real, they were probably working on it like hardcore to try and get it in the last update. They just couldn't.
Oh, I bet. And I bet you anything, like them having to fully rework the card, there's no way they wanted to do that, right? I have to imagine they tried to fix it, it's not working. They tried to fix it, it's still not working. And at some point, they just had to say, like, look, it's busted. Like, we need to rework this card. So that's got to be part of the reason for the delay. Is like, I think they were kind of stringing it out to see, like, can we get it fixed in time for this patch? And then at the last minute, it became very evident that, like, it's not working right. And
it's like Nexus level event type compensation, right? I wasn't around for that, but this was probably
Kinda.
more than most folks
It was.
thought.
It's pretty much, yeah. I think it's meeting the bar of what people expect from a unpleasant situation. I mean, yeah, there are definitely some edge cases that probably got a little screwed, and I think I'd be more annoyed about that if the shop didn't just change so that if this does happen again,
100%. Yes.
it won't happen the same thing, right? Because now they have that, and we'll probably talk about this later or shortly with the patch. But now you have that new card guaranteed in your shop for a week. So
Well,
we've been wanting that for a while, being able to not have to look into the matrix of the code to figure out when, can I buy this new card the day it comes out?
yeah.
Or is Flannel Jesus not being kind today?
Oh god. Oh. All right. Well, speaking of, so there's the patch update, right? This came out April 18th. So recently, over the past week. Patch notes included series drop, token shop revamp, matchmaking and update, some balance updates, which we'll talk about, some bug fixes, and all of that. So there was a lot. And like you talked about, the shop actually is really cool now. So we've all got Jeff in the shop for a week, and you've got your series 4 or 5 card over to one side, and you've got like an ultimate variant over to the other side. And so they've mixed it up a little bit instead of having just one thing. And so it's cool. We get an opportunity to get the new card. I'm a little I'm frustrated because if I want the new card, I don't have enough credits or tokens or whatever. And it's if I want that card and not have to wait for it to rotate in my shop, I'm going to have to spend $100, which I don't particularly want to do.
140 if you're from Canada.
That's
Oh, boy.
crazy, man. Oh my God.
Pretty nuts.
I like that the ultimate variants are off to the side, because when they were taking the place of I was looking for Kang to pin Kang.
You get an ultimate variant.
And you got an ultimate variant, and it's well, this is really cool. Hey, I like that Venom White Queen's skin. It's awesome, but I don't want it in my shop right now. I want the Kang. And so having this separate is cool. It's great. I wish that my only kind of the thing that I think is a bummer, I suppose, is that you can't pin the new card. It's it sits there for a week,
say that same thing.
because otherwise, well, I'm having this debate right now. I don't know when is the right time to talk about it, but I've got Kang pinned and I've got Jeff in my shop, and I've got 4,000 tokens or whatever. And so all right, I could buy one of these bundles and have enough tokens to get one of these cards. Which one should I get? If I could, I just pin Jeff and be done with it and just leave them both there, and get one and then get the other one later. But because Jeff is going to rotate, then I guess I just have to wait for it to show up in my shop again, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, pretty much. I have seen one thing I do think would be a little bit better is this might not help your scenario specifically, but I think I've heard a few people who are yeah, I want to pin Jeff, I'm gonna buy Jeff, but I'm not gonna have the tokens for him this week. And I think it would be nice if they just gave you the option where you could pin it and have it go to the other slot right away. Because obviously they want the weekly spotlight to be the new card, and that's also what people have wanted it to be.
Well, that's been the complaint, right? Is that the new card came out and I can't get it because it's not even offering to sell it to me. I either have to manipulate the shop, or I have to hope that it gives it to me.
It was very frustrating as a content creator, and I mean, literally, I think everyone has talked about it because everyone has had it happen to them at least once during a release where it's you're hyped up for a new card. Marvel Snap is especially a difficult beast because people just want to see the card on day one, and they want you to tell them, do I buy this card or do I not buy this card? And then a lot of people don't want to see it again for a long time. And
all the people who
weird.
can't buy it, right? I mean,
yeah, that's the whole thing. It's frustrating, right? You don't want to watch a card that you can't buy if it's not worth it compared to Galactus or Thanos or whatever other card. And so it makes sense, and we've talked about this before, and I won't go into a whole tangent on it, but it was frustrating when the window is that small to do content and have it I don't know, even just perform up to standard. I'm not even talking about trying to maximize views. I mean just to not do worse than normal. You kind of need the card on release, and the old system if you didn't actually look into the files, it was just random. Unless you had all the cards and you were guaranteed it, it was just random, and there was nothing you could really do about it. And even if you had all the cards, unless you had all the ultimate variants, you could roll one of those, and that happened to some people too.
Yeah.
So it was, but they told us a while ago the token shop is being changed. It's finally here, and though it's not perfect necessarily,
It's way better though. My
so
goodness.
much better. Yeah,
Well,
it's a very big step up.
So I skipped ahead a little bit in the show notes, and I'll go back. But since we're on this, so here's how it works. For those of you listening to the audio version of this podcast, we do have the graphics up on the screen if you want to visualize. But I'll try my best to describe. So the token shop updates, right? There's now 3 cards in your token shop. So one in the middle, one to the right, one to the left. So the middle is going to be your weekly spotlight. When there's a new Series 5 card, when it gets released, it's immediately featured in its own section for 1 week. And then when you buy the card, then I guess that section's hidden until the new card is released.
It actually stays
actually,
there.
it
Just
says
does it?
sold.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, it says sold.
It
on it.
doesn't
That's
go
like,
away.
As you can see,
I'm sorry. I'm like
I
reading
purchased-
this is
Yeah,
what I
it's
get for
okay.
reading the chat
the
GPT
AI
notes.
generated.
Yeah.
Well, I should take responsibility for being lazy, but I won't.
Well, see, I haven't
yeah.
bought it yet, so it just says sold up there. That's
Just
that's
says
fine.
sold.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, but that's cool because that's something that people have been clamoring for, right? Like we were saying that, hey, new card comes out. This is your opportunity. You've got a week to buy it without having to try to like luck into it, which is cool. Ultimate variants now will be off to the left-hand side. So according to I think it was like the patch notes or whatever we talked about last time, that they felt that they deserve their own section and should be featured separately from the Series 4 and 5 cards. So the ultimate variants will be getting their own section in the token shop apart from your normal like daily variants, right? So there you go. There's those. They're really expensive, but they're pretty cool. And then the Series 4 and 5 cards will have their own section off to the right. And so now we've got an opportunity to get those apart from your brand new released card. So I think that's pretty sweet. I like it. It's good. I have this dilemma now because I can't buy both and you can't pin the new card, which is really irritating. That's my only complaint.
It would be
Fancy.
nice if they did something like that, but yeah.
Well, it's fine. I mean, it is what it is, but at least you've got a week, I suppose. I still think the price point on this game is a little bit high. But
Yeah, it's nuts.
As do
And
we
so
all.
I think that so I'll give you 2 answers to your question, Nate. The first one will be a little bit more philosophical and introspective, and then the second one will be prescriptive and direct. So the way that I look at the token shop is that you have
such a gentleman.
you have a very finite number of resources, even if you spend money on the game.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get everything you want, and this is by design because of their whole asinine, unique collection nonsense. We won't get into that. So, there's 2 ways that you can approach what you buy. You can buy the things you think will do well, or you can buy the things you think you'll have fun with. And I think that if you try and chase the meta through the Series 5 token shop, you're going to put yourself in a place where you're going to struggle mentally because it will be very frustrating. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Like, they don't want to spend the tokens on the card if it's going to suck.
Well,
Now, if you
yeah.
buy the cards that you think you'll enjoy, then if they turn out to not be that good, then it's okay. Like I
You still have
bought
fun
Ghost.
with it, right? That's the idea. Like if it's a card you think is going to be fun, and you do have fun with it, even if it's not like a tier 1 card, I think your tokens, there's value there, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be careful because it's winning is fun too.
Yes, that's true.
And that's kind of where the dilemma happens, right? Is you want to have fun with your card, but it's not a whole lot of fun if I'm playing my Ghost and I'm not winning any games with the cool effect on the card I just paid 6k tokens for.
Yeah. Now, I will say, we'll talk about it later, but I think the argument for Jeff is the versatility, where it can be slotted into so many different decks where, like, the other piece is that, like, Kang ain't going anywhere, right?
Well, so Nate, you remember that night that I bought Kang and we co-opted a few games?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played Kang since. So I have played more Jeff than I have Kang. So clearly I would recommend Jeff. But, there are people that love Kang. Empty Apartment is, a Kang truther. Loves Kang because it helps mitigate variance and cube loss on the grindy climb.
Yeah.
You got to just go with your gut. There's no right or wrong answer. Jeff versus Kang. Although, there is an argument to be made that Jeff will eventually downgrade and Kang won't, which is a whole other topic that aggravates me. But I wouldn't let that factor.
The way that this game works, by the time Jeff downgrades, he's going to be nerfed. So
no, I don't like. So
I think Jeff's fine.
I'm joking.
I know you are, but although people legitimately worry about that.
Well,
it's understandable.
It's
Look
happened.
What happened with Shuri.
It's happened
Thanos.
so many times though. Like we've seen it, and there's no compensation when that happens, right? I bought Thanos, and it got nerfed less than a week after I bought it. And it's fine, there's no compensation for it, and so when a card is changed significantly, and now we'll get into it momentarily, but like at least they're not afraid to fix stuff. Like we saw Leader get buffed, right? So it's interesting. I guess I don't want to go down too far of a rabbit hole, but anyways, it's all interesting. And speaking of the series drop though. So one happened, right? So from Series 4 to Series 3, we had Shuri, Super Skrull, Black Panther, Bast, and Valkyrie. This is actually awesome for me because I had all of Pool 3, except I had all of these cards anyways, but I was missing Super Skrull. And as soon as it like plopped into the Series 3 shop, I was like, oh cool, free card. So I got that one for free from the series or the Pool 3 separate shop thing, which I had not been able to use prior to this, which is pretty cool. And then Series 5 down to Series 4, we've got Stature, MODOK, and Ghost. So
this was sweet. This was Stature is a card I liked from the minute they revealed her. But it was just one of those cards where I was like, I don't know if I can get on board for 6K tokens. Like, I really like the card, but there are 2 cards in the game that enable you to do your fun thing of making Stature cost 1. And that's Moon Knight and it's Black Bolt. Moon Knight only saw play in discard, and even there, he wasn't in every discard list. He was actually cut from a lot of them. Because you don't always like it's not as targeted discard, the body's not that impressive. It just can kind of screw you up sometimes. And for that reason, actually, a lot of the Stature decks don't even run Moon Knight. They only run Black Bolt. And that was a real hard sell because before Stature, Black Bolt was kind of mocked as one of the worst Series 3 cards in the game. Like, someone shows you their early Pool 3 list and you see Black Bolt and you're just like, I'm sorry. He was just that bad. But, all it takes is one good card sometimes to make a bad card not as bad. And I waited on Stature. I opened her in a box, and she has become one of my favorite cards to play within the game. She is so incredibly fun to play. It's making me use Black Bolt and actually have like surprising success and fun with the card. And it's just, I think it's just a good embodiment of like, it's so cool. And it's even cooler when you see the cards drop to Series 3 because then it's accessible to so much more of the player base than even just Series 4. And that's why we're going to see most of these cards here. Shuri was obviously very present before the nerf, but we're already seeing Super Skrull pop up a lot more. Bast and Valkyrie were very popular, and now more people get access to those cards. So
I've seen so much Bast and Valkyrie this week. So much.
Yeah, there's a ton of it going around. And the big thing with this is the first series drop we've had where a card that started in 5 has made its way to 3. That hadn't happened yet. So it was always we suspected it, but nobody knew. Some people were like, I don't know if they're going to drop all 5 of these at once. They could break it up and drag it down even more. And I don't think it was actually that unreasonable of assumption to think that was a possibility, given how they broke up pool 4 initially, right? And they slowed that a little bit. But this kind of confirms we now have a precedent how long it takes. These cards released, in November or December? I think it was November. Yeah, November. It
was November. That was when they got released when the token shop got released. That was November.
Yeah, I remember. So since then, we're in April now, so it's been it's 5 months for cards to when they first drop to go to Series 3, which I still think is longer than it should be, but we don't need to dive into that whole topic. At least we know now. Now there's a precedent, right? So we can kind of map out, before we were mapping out, hey, we know when these drop from 5 to 4, but now we know kind of exactly how long it should take
5
for them
months
to get to 4 to 3.
It's like 2 Hearthstone expansion cycles. Just saying.
Yeah, it's almost half a year.
It's like
That's a lot.
that's like what 175 MTG releases.
Yeah, right. It
Yeah.
feels like it.
It's a long time, and it sucks because even though they're putting the new card as the featured card of the week for a lot of people, it's just going to be like when you go by Cartier or Louis Vuitton and you see the fancy handbag or diamond ring in the window, you can look
Yeah,
but not
like,
touch.
that's nice. Not for me.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still the whole system. They've said that they agree that the system needs refinement, whatever that means. I look forward to it. But for now, 5 months. Yeah,
Well,
there's not much else to say. Of
least
the
we
3
know.
cards that dropped, Stature's probably the best one. MODOK is very good in discard, which is not a great deck, but an important piece of
It's
it.
like
And Ghost,
fine, right? It's like
Ghost
it's not the
is-
worst, not the best.
yeah, Ghost is the card that I spent 6,000 tokens on and get to say it's a good thing I like the design and like the card and the character, because if I thought it was going to be the nutty meta breaker, well, I would be,
whoopsies.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone there on that one.
Well,
I don't care. You know what? It's fine. Funny enough, I played more Ghost than I did Kang.
oh, there you go.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah, Kang is very interesting. It almost reminds me of Galactus a tiny bit in that people I think either love it or hate it, where it's like, I don't know. I posted that question I think on Twitter and had some people saying it's a waste, don't buy it, and some people being like, what are you talking about? It's incredible. You get to see what they're going to do, and you get to play mind games, and you get to, how many cubes I've saved from playing Kang. And it's like, oh, well, you get to see different sides of the argument. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, maybe you like it and maybe you don't. And
I'm not implying it's bad that I didn't play it. It turns out I haven't been playing it because you see there's this card we're going to talk about in a minute called Lockjaw, and I tend to play a lot of Lockjaw, and Kang doesn't really work with Lockjaw.
yeah.
No, that's
It doesn't work with Dino.
It's not a good one. It is funny with Doc Ock sometimes and Galactus Mirrors. I've had some pretty funny moments with that. But I do think you're not the first person, Nate, who's mentioned to me like, I'm trying to decide between like Jeff and Kang, or usually it's one of the big bads. Those are the ones people focus, right? It's like Galactus, it's Galactus, Thanos, and Kang.
I can't believe we're living in a world where I've got to pay $100 and choose between one of 2 cards. Like, you got to be joking me. This is insane. Or just not, and just wait and save the money and wait until one of them rotates, which is probably acceptable. But like, good Lord.
You just have to pick, you get that one freebie a month, and that's why so many people ask the question, right? Like, it's because they want their one freebie to not be a whiff, because they have to wait a whole nother month unless you want to break out the real OP card, the credit card. So it makes sense why like people are like, it's a pretty big dilemma, like, which do I choose? And having that regret is some of the worst feeling. Like, it's like you're kind of kicking yourself. You're like, how did I not see that this wasn't? How did I not see that Ghost wasn't going to be the nuts? Like I thought it was.
Yeah.
So you can regret it a bit sometimes.
I will say that sometimes a card isn't good right now, and then all of a sudden it's awesome later. I think.
Yeah, like Black Bolt.
Yeah, or I mean, even look at a card like
Super Scroll.
Super Scroll, or even Valkyrie to some extent is seeing a ton of play now. Man, maybe part of it is just that trickle down where these new cards come out, and like insert whale noises here, only a small number of people are playing with the card. And so it takes some time for it to like matriculate down, and then when it's more accessible to a wider audience, then more people can start to play the card, and then you'll start to see it more and more on ladder. And so maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But anyways,
yeah, you definitely see it appear more in the numbers because of the series drops and this whole ridiculous system and whatnot.
Hey, just a quick point, a little bit meta. Remember when y'all told me that we'd only spend 5 seconds on the series drop? I told you so.
Yeah,
cool. I don't care. It's fine. I'm just
I will spend 5 seconds on this. There is a matchmaking update. Players that reach infinite rank will only match against other infinite rank players. There you go.
Okay, wait. No, there's something worth mentioning here that I think is really funny. that most people in Infinite, I think, experienced. So there's a whole, like, we hear a lot about the high elo players like Educated Collins, KM Best, Lambie. I won't name them all, but the players that we all admire and respect, they get to bot elo, right? And they don't play humans anymore because they're so high up.
Not anymore.
I don't
still
know.
are
If
there,
or maybe
played
not.
him, he was
there's a
queuing
lot
into a lot of
more-
bots.
They
But
get a lot more humans now, though. Like,
what we
way
were
more.
not talking about were the throwers, the punters, the Agatha farmers, right? The people that would basically throw their MMR, that they would get so low that they too would go into bot elo or play players that are like in silver or bronze or whatever. And now with the new infinite only matchmaking, you will play against these players, and there are people in Infinite whom I'm getting matched against that clearly have never played a real game of Marvel Snap in their life. They're doing things that, like, is this for real? There's like some crazy gambit, or Kang's about to hit the table. Or, no, they're just throwing 8 cubes away because they're used to farming bots. So I'm happy to see that, because apparently a lot of people, I'm told, would abuse the system to hit easy infinite, and to farm, and I think that the latter should be a little bit more equitable. I mean, I think that at a certain point, it's frustrating for people, especially people that haven't played a lot of card games. They see like a lot of people hitting day one infinite. It's like, well, I'm struggling. Am I that bad?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not. Well, you might be that bad, but really you're not. You're getting much tougher matches, right? And it just doesn't really seem fair. So I thought that was a really interesting thing with the matchmaking change. It really has changed the infinite experience. For the non-infinite side, I haven't spoken to many. One person on Twitter I had a little exchange with told me that for them the experience has gotten worse, because now they don't queue into the infinite players who will just play the game out because of whatever, or will play meme stuff. It's like, this is what I was worried about. It's
Or
like
tryhardy.
super sweaty, try-hardy. Like, people are even more conservative with their resources, and so there's this bottleneck. And I am not looking forward to that next month, to the extent that I don't even think I'm gonna bother trying. If it happens, it happens. But like, I put myself through the grinder this month to get there, and I think it might be. Maybe it won't be, because everybody won't be. I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but
Yeah.
I think that there's the possibility that they're not done adjusting the ladder, and I think that the commitment to looking for ways to make it feel less bad is at least encouraging. The question is, how long is it going to take them for them to find that right formula?
Dude,
And we did have confirmation, by the way. They didn't. I don't think they said this in the patch, but I think you got asked on Discord or something. But they did also, with this infinite versus infinite only thing, they also implemented what is essentially the game snapshots your MMR when you hit infinite. So the thing Blue is talking about, where people tank with Agatha and then they get either low bot elo, or they run into players they just shouldn't be playing against, who are at like a whole different level of the game. That shouldn't be possible anymore, not just because of the infinite versus infinite matchmaking, but now when you hit infinite, the game basically marks, hey, this is your MMR. It can go up and down, but you can't tank it below where you entered.
Snapshots it, yeah. That's live.
So it's that I think is going to be a pretty good thing, because I mean, it's never really good when people are just getting absolutely smashed by a Smurf. It's not a good feeling, and it also, like Blue mentioned, it creates this weird sense of, oh man, somebody got this day one infinite and like a bunch of the people in high level body elo, I've said this a bunch, it's a whole different game. They're playing a literal different game than you, and it feel like comparing to that it's only gonna set you up for like disappointment, because like you're not comparing the same skills or the same. It's really not the same game. Yeah, so this is a good change, and I have noticed it's not totally fixed in terms of like people do still get bots at the very high MMR stuff, but most of the people I know in bot MMR have seen a notable increase in more human players and seeing a wider variety. There have been some issues with people at the really high brackets getting a lot of more rematches. I'm not entirely sure, what they're doing or how they did this. I think this will continue to get remedied as we still don't have global matchmaking, which is really weird outside of like the friendly games. And I think that will open up the band, another level.
That'll
So
help.
yeah, I think that's supposed to be coming around the same time as Conquest in June. Maybe it comes sooner. We don't know. It's kind of weird because I don't think. Well, I guess if you think about like Hearthstone has 3 different servers, but it just seems kind of archaic to me to like in shooters. It makes sense to have region-based servers more because ping matters, right? Like your reaction time matters. In card games, there's like usually no reaction time, so it's like
It mattered in Hearthstone. Have you ever tried to play on the Asia server? It was brutal. Like EU is okay, but Asia was like
Asia did
disconnects
have
and
DC
lag
issues,
and
I guess. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. It just seemed weird to me because like I feel like that's been a practice that hasn't been as common in gaming outside of shooters because of or I guess not just shooters, but games that really latency is a big
Ru-
problem. And card
Runeterra
games,
has regions as well, like Hearthstone.
oh really? Wow, maybe
And
more had it than I thought.
I think Magic Arena has it. I don't think they have global
Hmm.
matchmaking in Arena. I'm not
Yeah,
sure about
maybe I'm just
Arena.
wrong then. And this is
This
like a
It's not.
normal
It's not a
thing.
question of being wrong. You'd think that it wouldn't be a big deal, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm just surprised. But now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I guess more do it than I thought. It's just nice to know that it's coming because it's like at least they got it working for battle mode, so we don't have to. It would have been. Can you imagine how much of a nightmare it would have been to do some of like the community tournaments if they didn't have that with battle mode at launch? Like you had people traveling from different parts of the world, and the beta players were all on like one server too, so that could like mess with things. So it's at least they got it shipped for battle mode and it's coming to the full game soon.
the MMR still got to be wonky though, because I'm in that like 75 to 80 range right now, and I keep facing the same people like over and over and over. It's bizarre.
There are definitely more rematches post patch. I've noticed that for sure. And I know at least after Infinite, they did confirm like one thing where it doesn't it doesn't take your collection level into account at all. Whereas I guess before it was in some way, not that it really felt like that, to be honest. Like, because I think we all had that experience at some point of being early pool 3 and just getting absolutely thrown to the wolves.
Yes.
It's like we all kind of suffered through it or are currently suffering through it, and then you get to the other side, and this game's a journey sometimes.
Well, we're all here for it.
that it is. So speaking of journey, this is probably the part that I think is the most substantive or interesting. There were balance changes and much anticipated balance changes because, well, there have been several that were kind of misses over the last few weeks. Most notably, the change to Red Skull and then the subsequent change to Red Skull. Like the first one was like a nerf, but it felt more like a buff.
Mhm.
And then I think
It's the Costco hot dog. I'm telling you.
yeah. I mean, he is kind of big and red, so
Yeah.
his trench coat's like a bun. All right, that's enough. Is Red Skull a hot dog?
Find out in the next lore video.
No, he's just a dollar store Nazi. Anyways, yeah, so the big balance changes, and so this wasn't just numbers. This was full text changes for some of the cards. Some surprising cards, some not so surprising cards. So yeah, let's just go through them one by one because I think there's a lot to say on each one. So first up, let's talk about our favorite daughter of Wakanda, Shuri, who is changed to double the power of the next card here. So this
If you play your
warrants,
next card here too.
yeah.
Condition.
So if you don't play your next card at that location, it just doesn't trigger?
Correct. Yes.
Crazy.
And
All right.
also, they haven't added this yet. They're gonna have to add an animation for it. But she works like Rescue, where if you play Shuri, let's say in the middle location, and something happens, and that Shuri is moved to the right, to anywhere it wasn't before, right?
Sure.
You have to play the card if you want the Shuri buff where you played her, not where she currently is. And I've seen a few people get tripped up on that because it's not very intuitive. You think, oh, I need to play the card where I play or with the Shuri, right?
Yeah, they need to do
That's the
like
idea.
the rescue or like the Hawkeye, right?
Yeah, I think
exactly.
I think they did say they're gonna do that.
They
It's
did.
just not a thing yet, but I've seen a little confusion with that. But this is we kind of called for this, right? Like this is one of the change. This is actually the change I liked the best because it preserves the powerful things Shuri is doing, but now you have a much more free way to interact with it, and that always felt like the issue to me. It wasn't that Shuri's doing this big powerful thing; it's that she's doing a big powerful thing. You see it coming a mile away and even if you have the cards that are supposed to stop that, they can just stop you from stopping that very easily. And that
This
was, I think, the big problem with it.
Yeah, this was a pretty big change. Like I think that when you think about the meta opening up, which I mean, love it, hate it, in between, things have significantly changed. I think a lot of it has to do with this, but I like that the card's still playable. And much like other cards that have been nuked far harder than this, they are willing to continue to update them. So, this might not be the last change to Shuri, but I think it's appropriate. It kind of removed the ridiculous like play Shuri, and then play the buffed card behind a Cosmo, and then it's like, well, looks like I lose. So, I think this makes for more interesting counterplay options
Yeah.
and just better interaction. So I don't think that this one was negatively received by anyone. The only people who received it negatively wasn't that they changed, not the change itself, but just the fact that the card was changed right as it hit Series 3. So we talked about the Series drop. So Shuri went from being Series 4 to Series 3. And at the same time that she's democratized and available to all for play, she's now nerfed. And there were a few angry tweets about that.
There's the
most
optics are
prominent-
bad. That's for sure.
Well, the most prominent one was by Sottle. I think from my perspective, we've beaten this horse to death about the collection system. I think that at this point, like pretty much there are no surprises there. This is going to continue to be a thing, right? And I think that part of it, I don't think there's this malicious like intent on the part of the designers to release the cards overpowered so people rush out and buy them and then nerf them. I think that like most card games, things get released. Sometimes they're overtuned. They have to be tuned down, and that happens in concert with the cards being downgraded because of how patches work. I think that's just a consequence of card games. Like for every Shuri that enters Pool 3 nerfed, how many Ghosts or Shannas or Dazzlers are there going to be, right?
Yeah,
So
you remember it because it sticks out, right? And also
Yeah.
because you played it like against it 1,000,001 times.
I opened a Sentry today.
Oh,
you know what? You laugh. Actually, there's
he's not terrible anymore.
there's some good decks with Sentry now.
No,
So
You'll have
I
to
used to
talk
call
to
him the
NHL.
worst card in the game. Yeah, I hated Sentry with a passion even, and I mean we won't die. We'll wait till we finish nerfs to talk about potential buff stuff, but I do think it's very refreshing seeing them if they do. And I mean this is kind of relevant to one of the cards we're going to talk about at the end of this section, Leader. If they over nerf something, they've said it a few times, like we're not afraid to revisit a card if we delete, quote unquote, delete a card from the game. And they've said that quite a few times, but we haven't actually seen them do it yet until this patch. To me, that's a very good thing that we're seeing it now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's carry on. Do we want to hit the next? So we'll hit Leech now, I suppose.
Yeah. So this was surprising, not surprising. I think that we were expecting Leech to get hit last time, so we weren't expecting him to get hit. So this isn't really so much a nerf as it is a rework. So before, Leech's ability was on reveal, remove the abilities from all cards in your opponent's hand. So all cards present in their hand would basically become, cards with no text. Now it reads, and this is really important, it's not an on reveal anymore. It's like an aura or a triggered
its
effect.
own kind of text.
So not an on reveal now reads, at the start of turn 6, remove all abilities from cards in your opponent's hand. So it's everything that's in their hand at the time that turn 6 starts after you draw. So the card you draw also gets leached as well. So, this is still a very powerful card, but a very different one. I think that it's more in line with the spirit of what Leech was intended to do as a kind of a pressure valve on the meta.
Yeah.
But
Feels exactly what it's like, right? Like
Hmm.
I think they came out and said like Leech is never a card you want to be that prominent, like to be a meta force. He's there to keep something in check, and then he knocks that thing down a bit, and then other things prey on Leech, and you have a kind of equilibrium. But it turned into, well, if there's a way I can cheat Leech out a turn early, it makes sense to put Leech in my deck, because letting my opponent not play their cards is a powerful thing.
As a ramp deck enjoyer, yeah, we'd get Leech out as early as turn 4 or 5 or whatever. Like, I mean, you Electro into Leech, really. I played a ton of like Sandman ramp.
Leech or Sandman, right? They do this kind of same thing. They're really limiting your opponent in some way.
So this
Sarah enjoyer, it's painful.
it significantly changes the card.
Yeah.
I don't want to say like the card isn't good anymore. It's just very different now. So
yeah, the effect is the same, but the intent is like, a big part of the frustration was like, oh, they're getting my whole hand on turn 4 because they cheated out or they dunked into Lockjaw and avoided the tempo loss, and it was just like
getting from Lockjaw was crazy.
Yeah, or you throw it into your Lockjaw and you're just getting a Devil Dinosaur or a Magneto out in replacement. It's like, oh, not only did I not lose tempo, I actually gained it while making my opponent's cards not do the things they're trying to do.
You
for
could,
all the whining I did about Leech, I'm probably guilty.
I wish
guilty
you could,
than most for that line.
You got to teach me how to do that. Every time I put like a Leech into Lockjaw, I get a stone out of it. So,
so I don't have to. I mean, we're gonna get to Lockjaw, but I mean, it's just that they're not symbiotic anymore.
Yeah.
But Leech is still played in other decks.
It's
so
still good though. I think it's just you have to realize that it works differently now, and so you're not turning their entire hand into a bunch of bricks on turn 4. It's okay. Now, I mean, you're gonna make your opponent scramble now though, because it's like, oh well, I may have to play differently if I have to get my card out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if they get it out early, but still, it may make me play differently, because if I'm playing Sandman or Galactus or something where I have to plan out my turns, it's like, oh, well, I may have to do that a turn earlier than I wanted to, or I may not be able to play that anymore, or like I need to plan out for my turn 6. At the same time, it's not awful depending on what you're playing, because like when my Destroyer gets leeched, like it's pretty rad. So
yeah, it doesn't hurt, right? But the big thing with Leech I do want to mention is the one, like, I agree that it's like it's more of a rework, keeps the spirit of the card. It's not like terrible now, it's not crazy good now. The one place where it's really different though is Galactus, both for and against, because before, if you leeched a Galactus player, they were usually just out of there.
Yep.
They can't play their death anymore. Their null is 0 power. Their best thing they usually have to follow up with is a Chavez. Your Shang-Chi doesn't work. Like Leech
nothing works, dude. The whole deck, like, I've been playing nothing but Galactus the entire month. If you if you get leeched and it triggered,
watch that, Nate. The chat might not.
Oh, sorry. Oh, look at 100 of the people just left. Yeah, sorry. But if you got leeched, like, I just have to concede. It's not like it wasn't even worth playing.
You almost can never win through it.
There's another deck like Galactus that also benefited from the Leech change, although probably not as important. Discard. MODOK on 5. Like, if you got leeched and then you flipped MODOK, like it was
so gross.
You're done.
Your apocalypse is toast, and
now like you don't care if you get leeched as a discard player. It doesn't really do anything.
Well, you can sometimes you can care, but it does so little compared.
You won't
to
get the +2 off of Apocalypse when it discards into Dracula. That's it. I mean that could make or break, but it's a lot less of a hit. But
you don't lose the game on the spot, right?
You don't lose the game on the spot. Yeah, so it takes away that frustration. But for those of you that invested in a Dan Hip Leech, a quality investment, fear not, the card is still playable. We'll continue to see play.
You know what? I don't even like the card very much because it's done me dirty so many times. But I snap bought that Dan Hip.
It's so
variant.
good.
It's so good.
It's such a great great art, and it's so fitting. It's such like a happy, wholesome looking art on a card people loathe more than like almost anything in the
Unlike
game.
the stock image that's on the screen right now, it's just,
Yeah, that one's just
let's
kinda-
move on. I don't even want to look at them anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, now I wish that I had the soundboard queued up, but cue the Godfather. Look what they did to my boy.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? All right. So well, I'll field this one. Let's read what the card did and what it does now. So Lockjaw, our favorite best boy, used to read after you play a card here, swap it with a card in your deck. And now this only happens once a turn. Now, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I saw this change, I was surprised, and I also thought the card was dead.
Did you cry?
A little bit. I cried a little bit. I was having a bad week. I said at the start of the show, and then they murdered my boy.
Mhm.
But you know what? As of 2 nights ago, I've been playing Lockjaw nonstop, so I think the card's still good. It's just less high rolly, and it also gives you as the player a little bit more agency to curate your Lockjaw lane, which you couldn't do, which is surprisingly relevant.
Yeah.
So the Lockjaw has kind of gone from being like the centerpiece to the supporting cast member. I think that's how Lambie kind of phrased it. Now that's really apt. You can still get a lot of value off of it, but you can also kind of mitigate some of the variance as well. So I think it's an interesting change. I thought they massacred him. Time will tell, but initial data on Lockjaw is like they might have almost, dare I say, this might be a bit of a hot take, they made a red skulled Lockjaw a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
looking good.
no, I actually think so, and I
Yeah.
see it by Thinjay in chat, but I felt the same way. The number of times I wish I could play a big boy into Lockjaw and have it stick was not small.
Yeah.
I experienced that a lot playing Thanos, like pre-nerf, where depending, like if you low roll or if you need to
You
win
draw
that.
all your big stuff. Like you don't have like
Yeah.
'cause that happened quite a bit, right? Like sometimes it's only stones left in your deck, and you need to fight for that lane.
So now I can play something into it and get something out of my deck, but then if I need to slam down a Cosmo or a Shang-Chi or a big boy or whatever, like you still have that option. You
It's
can't.
less high rolly too. It's less low rolly, but it's less high rolly, and I think that's really good. I didn't realize how much I hated playing against it all the time until it went away. I'm like, wow, I actually have to think about what my opponents might be playing rather than being like, all right, what's popping out of the Lockjaw today? What's in the box? Is it a 1 power stone or is it an America Chavez? Like, and I'm very pleased. I mean, yeah, you still there's still RNG to it. It's how the card works, but it just feels so much better not to be like seeing as much of that RNG or it not happening so early in the game. I don't know. It just feels like a really enjoyable difference to me with the card still being very good at what it was trying to do. We kind of predicted effects like this in card games are very dangerous things. So I'm not surprised at all to see them put like a limitation on the effect. I mean, we've seen it in
Well, I'm not too surprised either, because when we saw the nerf to Quinjet, it was like, oh, well, I can't cheat out all my stones into Lockjaw in the same turn anymore.
yeah.
That or
was
for
the first step
zero or
in
whatever.
slowing it down. Mhm.
And so, but at least I do think that this is elegant in that you still have the high roll potential, but you also have the ability to play the lane differently. If
Yeah.
you like, it gives
You
you
have to think about it
agency.
more.
You know what I mean? Like you have choices now on how you want to play it. And so I appreciate that the card isn't just dead, because while I'm not playing a ton of it at the moment,
So-
really enjoy the card and the deck. Like,
I want to quickly fact check my hot take that they red skulled Lockjaw, because I see that prominent community member and Snap Zone author Safety Blade believes that this is a buff, and I'm not sure about that. So I'm just looking at the card win rate. So the drawn win rate for Lockjaw post nerf is 52 when drawn. Excuse me, it is 53.8%. When drawn after the nerf, and before the nerf, if I just look at the season, this is not super scientific, but I mean, good enough. It was at 56.42%. So it's taken a few percentage points down. Now you can argue, well, we're still figuring out how to build it, and it'll be more busted than ever once refined. But I mean, I think that it's still good, but it's just not going to be the driving factor.
Just
of a
kind of
deck.
different, right? Like,
You know
it's
what,
like,
though?
It's like Leech.
You have to wonder.
It's kind of different.
Yeah.
You have to
that's
wonder
a good way
though
of putting it.
how many people like aren't fully like as checked in as all of us are, or the people watching or listening are, where like you still play your card and you play a bunch of cards into it and don't realize that, like, wait, how come only one of them swapped out and the other ones didn't? Like, wait a minute, what happened here?
I've seen someone do that. Yeah, I've seen someone do that.
Yeah, or like the Sunspot nerf.
I was looking at a rank range where you would expect that thing not to happen. Although I mean, it probably still does, but to a lesser extent. I think that the variance on that is probably lower than all that. But I mean, the counter argument to the numbers I just read out was screw stats, which I mean, honestly, like the stats tell a part of the story, right? That's the quantitative kind of measurement, but there's still a qualitative measurement. And I think that where I'll concede the point is qualitatively, the card still seems very strong. And I'll continue playing it because I have a small brain and my entire Snap career revolves around this puppy.
Well,
Yep. Your team dog.
doesn't look like a Cosmo, but it's in the same family.
Hey, Cosmo, Lockjaw. Lockjaw cosplays as Cosmo. Vice versa.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because they're kind of like polar opposites, right? Like one kind of soft counters the other.
That's
sort of.
kind of funny.
Although not so much anymore. Like now you don't care about. Well, I shouldn't say that. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna zip it before I continue to say silly things. But definitely a surprise. I don't think anyone was expecting this. The card being changed, but also
we expected it last time. Right?
Well, we
And then
talked
didn't
about
happen,
it,
and we were
yeah.
like, well, they didn't do it last time. They just did Thanos another way. So I think not everyone was expecting, because Thanos wasn't the top dog. He was, playing second fiddle to Shuri. A lot of people were like, well, maybe they don't touch Thanos this time around because they already just hit him fairly hard, even though he was still good. And so I think, but if we remember in the dev comment, like I guess 2 patches ago or sometime between the 2 patches, they specifically said like, yeah, we're looking at Lockjaw and
but they're looking at every card ever.
Oh, I know,
so,
but they said specifically if something along the lines of, we've come up with a change we're pretty happy with if he needs to be changed or something like that. They were a little bit more specific about it while keeping it a little vague.
This change feels pretty elegant to me. The card is still very playable. It's not nerfed to oblivion, and it's just different. I like
change. It looks less. I feel like a lot of people, like, I know Blue, you had the most severe reaction to reading it, but I think a lot of people were in the same spot as you, where they were like, wow, they massacred my boy. What am I, like, I love this deck, especially all the Jane Jaw players who are just like, oh, I'm just trying to play an honest pool 3 deck and I'm getting nailed because of Thanos, who I probably don't even have yet. And so it's good to see that the initial reaction of, wow, this card is way, way, way worse, is it's still playable. And I mean, I'd go so far as to say good card.
Blue's guide for hitting infinite in Marvel Snap. Step 1, take Lockjaw, put it in a deck. Step 2, look up Lambie Series GG on Twitter and look at whatever Lockjaw deck Lambie is playing. Step 3, play that deck repeatedly until your number hits 100. The end.
Yeah. Good advice. I'd recommend that advice.
I mean, I've hit infinite 4 times. The first time was with freaking the Zabu Nightmare, right? But every other time was with Lockjaw Thanos 3 times. I'm like, what can I say? I'm a fraud. I'm a one-trick Andy.
At least you're not a Galactus player. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's why I keep you around, Nate, because whenever someone's calling me out, I just got to point to you, and
yeah, he's the
I'm off
distraction.
the hook.
it's Lee's fault. He got me hooked on it.
Yeah,
you know what? Like,
Galactus is a gateway drug.
I don't understand all the hate for it, because you see it coming a mile away. Like,
you know what?
anyway,
It's what I'm really worried about is that you're gonna get. The stupid card is going to get nerfed, even though the win rate is atrocious, because it feels so bad to lose to.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna cry like real tears. So
Well, they already nerfed Galactus. There
Yeah,
used
they
to be
already
3
did.
power.
Well, that was a buff. That was a buff.
I know, but that's why it's so funny.
Safety Blade still in chat? Okay, wait for it. It was a buff because of
It was a buff.
Shang-Chi.
It was.
Okay, we can move on now. That's a trigger. That was a trigger warning right there.
I was talking about America Chavez. All right.
Yeah, let's go on.
These ones are quick.
Yeah, they're interesting. I don't know.
So this is
call them
more
nerfs or buffs, but
this is for the design, I think, of the game, right? This doesn't really fundamentally change the card. I think these next two, it's more of the underlying mechanics. Like there's a little bit of change, but I think this is where we get into that like limiting design build space conversation. So America Chavez said you always draw this card on turn 6 and not before. Now it says starts on the bottom of your deck, draw this on turn 6. But if there's something that like shuffles your deck or whatever, like this could potentially not be on the bottom anymore.
I don't think there's a concept of deck shuffling in Snap.
There is.
There is?
There is. Anytime a rock goes in your deck, I think anytime anything goes in your deck, it's been confirmed. You can. So now you can draw this Chavez if your deck gets shuffled by something. So buff to Darkhawk decks, maybe? Probably not, but who knows?
Buff to Lockjaw.
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
You know what's funny? I misread. I got Lockjaw confused with Jubilee because I don't know. I'm used to other card games sometimes where you're thinking, oh, it's just pulling from the top of your deck, and Lockjaw's no, it's just a card. Whereas Jubilee, well, I mean, she didn't. I guess she used to be a card, but that's the other change here. We'll talk about it after.
These changes are to support some of the new cards, Iron Lad and Howard the Duck. Any Howard the Duck excited? Howard the Duck buyers out there?
What does it do again? I don't recall.
He gets you look at the top of your deck. He's a one
it's a
scry ongoing. Yeah, you tap Howard to look at the top of your deck, and I feel like other Magic players had the same moment I did, where I was just like, you tap it. What? And then it's like, oh, it's a phone game. It's a touch screen. You just press it. I was thinking like, oh, they're gonna implement tapping. What's going on here?
You can't use that word with this style of game. No. Well, I'm gonna turn my card sideways. Excuse me. What? Does that mean I can't attack with it?
Yeah.
Howard the Duck is a day one purchase. So gotta get it early.
Well, see, that's the problem. I'm like this.
Right?
Those people sitting with the 6K tokens, right? Like, you want to spend them on Jeff the Shark or like save them for Howard the Duck, right?
It's Jeff, no contest.
I mean,
Dark Sweet Ducks.
Why not both?
Yeah,
because I don't have $8 million to spend on this game. I can't believe you guys looked at and saw how much money you spent on it. You guys are so brave.
It's content. I'm gonna make money off of finding out how much money I've set on fire.
Well, and mine was morbid curiosity. Although I felt safe doing so because I knew my number was.
You saw my number.
Well, yeah. You know what? I know we're all masochists. Otherwise, we wouldn't play this game. So it's fine.
Yeah. You know, funny enough, it was lower than I thought it was. Although
mine, it was higher.
it was a number.
You know.
Anyways.
Yeah, you really want to have an interesting time, go watch the Howard the Duck movie. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I've heard it's entertaining. I kind of want to watch it just for the fun of it.
It's super old. It's like 80s movie. It's great.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
I'll have to check that out.
Anyways, I don't think this fundamentally changes the card. The card stays relatively the same.
It won't
Unless you're a cable stan. If you're a cable stan, you hate this. You always get
Yondu. It's a light nerf to Yondu.
It's still
Chavez as much.
As much. Yeah.
She would get on the. She would get. That's why you saw it happening all the time. They actually explained this was because of how Chavez worked. She could go to the top of your deck, but when it was time to draw, it would, I think, just draw the next card. So it would just get more likely over the game that she could get burned by Yondu because the odds of her being on the top of the deck were, I guess, higher, even though you weren't drawing her. So it was a weird little interaction that it used to be relevant in, they actually brought it up in beta. Jubilee was consistently pulling Chavez because Jubilee, I think, used to be how they changed it back to, and Chavez worked differently. So Chavez would like be guaranteed to pull from Jubilee, and you were just guaranteed Chavez used to be a 10 power too, so you were guaranteed 11 power for 4, like almost every time. It was pretty silly. It's like early beta.
So that's the Chavez change.
All right.
Next is the Jubilee change, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is basically very similar in terms of themes. So add a card from your deck to this location to add the top card of your deck to this location.
You
So
won't pull Chavez as much.
you won't pull Chavez as much, but you can now maybe. Yeah, I think that probably the decks that want to manipulate the top cards probably won't run maybe they'll run Jubilee. I don't know. It's an interesting. It's putting a little more agency, potentially a little less high roll.
Well, if you have like Howard the Duck out and you can see what's on the top, you can decide whether or not you want to play the Jubilee or not. Because like, how many times have you played Jubilee and have it super low roll? Like this kind of prevents that if you want to play into it.
Yeah, I think the only issue, I think that's one of those things that sounds great in practice. And then in reality, you're like, well, if I'm waiting a turn to Jubilee, unless you see something you can like fit in the curve, like let's say you see a 1-drop on the top of your deck, and like, oh, I'll play it with Jubilee next turn. Usually you have something else you want to play, right? Like you're trying to play a Jubilee on 3 with Zabu or turn 4. Because like you have other stuff to do, right? Usually in Jubilee decks, you have a higher curve. So you don't really want to like play it after if you don't have to. So I don't think I think it's a cool idea, but I don't think we're gonna see that really like come to fruition a ton until maybe there's like more cards that support like this.
I agree with you about 1,000,000%. I spent a lot of this week doing math on like draw percentages because I was looking at, again, it's Galactus stuff, but I was looking at like ramp and how do we draw our cards and how do we increase win rate or draw rate and this sort of thing, but it's all dependent on when you play it, what turns and stuff. And like these ideas of like, oh well, if I play Yellow Jacket into Adam Warlock, then I can draw my cards. But like, what is the chance that you're going to get these two cards that line up perfectly? It's pretty low. And it's the same thing with Jubilee, right? Like, okay, I have to have Howard the Duck out before I play my Jubilee, like the perfect curve.
And you can also pull Howard, by the way, right? Like that gives you another cheap thing in your deck that you don't want to pull.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll line up for somebody sometime and it'll make a really great YouTube video, but but more often than not, like you'll have Jubilee and not Howard, or have Howard and not Jubilee, or draw them both on like turn 5 and turn 6 when it's too late. And so anyways,
we're not playing those two cards together is kind of the bottom line, but it's still a change for
maybe
yet.
Someday.
Still a change for consistency. I think the overall theme here, though, that I didn't kind of puzzle this together before, is that we're seeing variance taken away. Less variance on Lockjaw, less variance on Chavez, less variance on Jubilee.
Like somewhere Ben Brode is crying. I can't even play. I can't even play the laugh
maybe
sound.
They rolled him up in a rug and threw him in the back of the closet so they could make these changes. Less variance, right? So I think most people will argue that that's probably a good thing.
It is probably good that they're thinking about future design space. As opposed to, because the longer the game continues and seeing its success, it's only going to get like grow larger and larger, right? And so I'd rather have them fix future design issues now than get 3 to 5 years into it and then have to rework a bunch of cards because it's limiting them. So
yeah,
because like these changes don't hurt us at all. And like I've played a lot of both of these cards, and I don't think that it fundamentally changes, but it changes on the back end to make future cards like workable, which is good.
You don't get the Chavez high roll as much,
but you can get other good cards too. So it's like there's a
exactly.
little bit of upside to the fact that maybe you're not pulling a free 9 power, but hey, maybe you're getting that Doom or that Odin, and that Odin's really nice a bit more consistently. So a little bit of ebb and flow there, but yeah, like you guys said, this is just for future design space, and it's fine. I think it's totally fine. It's not like the card is changing in a overly significant way. It's really the Chavez that changes more than anything, but it's such a minor thing that decks that run Chavez are probably still going to be running Chavez. I guess you're a little sad now, though, if Ben Brode's favorite card gets shuffled in your deck and suddenly you're drawing your Chavez before turn 6, but it is what it is.
So Subterranea now is good for Jubilee? All right, let's move on. So the next card, I don't think anyone was expecting. And I think that there was like a collective groans across the multiverse. Leader, buffed. So from a 6/7, copy all cards your opponent played to this location to the right of here, but on your side, to a 6/2 on reveal, copy the enemy cards with the highest power played this turn, but on your side. So the kind of weird off lane thing removed, power dramatically reduced. Probably only ever going to be copying one, although if you're playing multiple cards, the same
Oh,
power
it's
could.
copied a few on me.
Oh, has it? All right. Well, okay.
Moon Girl shenanigans. You get those double She-Hulks. Oh, leaders sitting
Mm.
there in the rafters.
Didn't think of that. Well, there you go.
I've seen it, like, I've lost to it when I've played like a Destroyer, and then I've like won to it when I've played like a Galactus and the opponent's crying. It's just, I had to change my brain to think that now on turn 6, whatever I play might get copied. Because
And you can play around it a lot more with this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the thing that was really frustrating about Old Leader was it didn't matter if you were a go tall deck, it didn't matter if you were a go wide deck. Leader just copied all your stuff as long as there was space for it. And if you went first, it copied your buffed stuff and then got the effects. It was so frustrating.
yeah,
And yeah, there were fringe ways you could play around it, but also trying to play around leader would almost always lose you the game if they didn't have their leader. And it just made for a very frustrating play experience where the whole game turned into, hey, can I be ahead going into turn 6? Well, guess I win the game then. And we've seen them not like that in the past with things like the arrow change, and it's just not a great thing for the game to know. Like, part of the fun of the game is getting to see what happens on that final turn because you don't always get there because of retreats and stuff. So the fact that you just know, oh, I'm going to get leadered and I'm going to lose was a really annoying feeling, and people hated this card. And now it feels like it's trying to do more of what they intended it to be, which is, hey, I'm ahead. My opponent's playing a deck where they're going to slam a really big dude or really big dudes. And I can just keep being ahead and counter that specific strategy. But if they're going to play a bunch of small stuff like Zoo, or if they're going to go wide like Surfer, it's no longer very effective at shutting down those strategies. So there's a lot more, the card's just a lot more balanced in terms of what it can actually hate against. People were really excited about this card because Sandman Ramp was already good, and this goes well with Sandman because they can only play one card. And he has found a home there and in his old favorite shell of Deathwave. But I think I don't think this is like some crazy top meta new card. It's just Leader's a playable card again, and that's
Yeah.
one more card people can play in their collection, and that's a good thing for the game. And I think more than anything, the precedent here is what's good, because they've talked about this for a while. Like, hey, if this card really is that bad, we can revisit it later and fix it. And that's a nice thing to say, but it's hard to, for me, it's hard to believe that until I see them actually do that to a card, because it's really easy to say, yeah, maybe we'll do it later if it's really that bad, but it's not like they're telling us it's that bad, right? Like, they're not putting out those official statistics. We don't know. We just have a little bit of data, but it's so small compared to what they have internally. So it's really nice to see this. And as someone who really did hate playing against Leader, I haven't minded seeing this back at all. And I think it's nice to I'd rather cards be playable than not playable, even if it's a card that can sometimes be a little frustrating.
I agree, but I still hate this card.
And that's totally
when I
fair.
saw this buff,
it's okay. I'm fine with it, but like, well, I think the hardest part for me is just getting used to because it disappeared,
You have to
right?
remember, yeah.
You
you
used
have
to
remember
see
how
it.
play around the
You
Leader.
used to see it everywhere, and then when it got nerfed, they hit it so hard that it just disappeared. And this makes it playable again, and I appreciate that design philosophy. But now I'm having to rework my brain to play around it, where before,
Destroyer, Nate, just make them blow their whole board up. That's the real Leader counter.
well, yeah, except yeah. I mean, I've done that. I've done that, and
It's
then
pretty
you
fun.
get a tie. Like, okay, that's cute, but
You just gotta have the Professor X. It's the return of ongoing Destroyer, like the good old days.
I have seen a surprising amount of Professor X over the past week.
Oh yeah,
it's an ongoing meta.
A lot of it, like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
We have
think
Jeff.
I was annoying the people on our Discord because I was nervous about this buff, this change. The right side of my brain was like, "Oh no, it's Leader. Let's get ready to
Yeah.
get." But you know, the left side of my brain was, "Well, let's just let it settle. Let's see what happens."
He's
I
better
don't-
in negative now.
Yeah, well,
It's been a while since we've had that meme, right? It's been a
Yeah.
good few patches since they nerfed Darkhawk. So yeah, no, this I don't know. This feels like a good thing. Some
It's
people are
fine.
still gonna hate leader, and that's okay.
It doesn't feel as bad to play against. I think that's the most
No, not
important
at
thing.
all. It feels like
Power
much
level
like
aside.
Leech. This feels like the intent. Leader was supposed to be a tech card that stopped your opponent doing a really big thing. Unfortunately, as new cards came out, he ended up just being a I win if I'm ahead button most of the time. And that wasn't really a good thing. And so he's doing that versus the decks he was supposed to do that versus, but he's not doing against like every deck in the game anymore. And that's kind of where you want a card to be, right? Like if you want it to be a tech card.
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
So those were the balance changes. And a pretty exhaustive list of changes. And starting next Thursday will be their trial period for live balance changes, which will be interesting to see.
Probably
What
mostly
gets
buffs, it sounds like, which is good because I don't want them to, as much as we needed the nerfs that we like got and stuff, I don't want them to just nerf cards willy nilly because I'd rather
Yeah.
them just make bad cards less bad, and so you have a reason to run those. Like that's what I hated, even though I'm okay with it now about the Sunspot change was. Well, yeah, Sunspot's a little bit worse now, but are the decks that ran Sunspot really gonna run another one drop? Like, do you really think that's gonna
No.
bring diversity to the one drop slot? Because I'm not super sold. So I think, not saying you didn't need it, but I do think it's better when you can to make more cards playable than making one card worse in the hope that it makes bad cards less bad or less relatively bad.
Well, I think that this has been a better balance change than the last couple.
Oh, it was a
Things are
needed
still
W. It was
things
much
are
needed.
still shaking out, settling out. So the jury's still out, but so far so good. With any patch that gets released like this, all kinds of new goodies get added that aren't immediately revealed to us, but intrepid data miners mine said data and share it with the internet at large. So if you guys who are listening or watching us live are not so keen on hearing about data mine stuff, you probably want to hit the mute button for the next few minutes. Because we don't discriminate and we will reveal what we have learned. So we got information about the June season in the data mines. So Zombies, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is included for the June Battle Pass and subsequent season?
Yeah, so we got information about June. This was generally expected to be a Spider-Man themed season because they try and tie this stuff in with the movies. And this one is going to be tied in with the upcoming Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie, the sequel. So a lot of people looking forward to that, myself included. And it's a really smart marketing win to be like, hey, you're excited for this movie, you're excited for these characters. Well, now you can play with the characters in this game you already like. So looking forward to it. We got to see what the season pass card is, as well as the variants, avatars, card backs, all that good stuff, and some other Series 5 cards that are all themed around the season. So that's always exciting. Spider-Man's a very beloved property, and I think I'm not alone. And this is probably the most excited for a season I've been maybe ever. I think this might be the first time I'm probably going to buy every card that's dropping that season because I think they're all really cool. But the season pass for June includes it includes the new card Ghost Spider, also known as Spider-Gwen, who is a spider-powered version of Gwen Stacy. Season pass also includes Spider-Verse variants for Spider-Man and Miles Morales, as well as Ghost Spider herself, and avatars and card backs featuring them. I don't know if they figured out which one is going to be in gold. My guess is it's going to be the 2099 Spider-Man because that's an easier one to make gold. I'm kind of curious
That's the
how
one
they
on the
do
left
this.
or the one on the right?
The one on the right, the darker
I see.
one.
Okay.
Although I could be wrong because Ghost Spider's the theme of the season. Worth noting, Ghost Spider actually got buffed. She got a bonus power from her what she was data mined. This is a card that was data mined a long time ago, and we knew it was probably gonna be coming around now, but now we know it's gonna be the season pass card. And what does Ghost Spider do? She's a 2/3 that on reveal you move the last card you played to this location. So move support, kind of the whole Spider-Man theme with the new cards is really leaning into that move support. which is pretty cool because it's been kind of an underrepresented archetype. We're also getting some more Spider-Man themed cards, those being Spider-Ham, a pig version of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, which is a futuristic version of Spider-Man, and Silk, a Korean-American superhero who was bitten by the same spider as Peter Parker. She actually showed up in the lore video I did on Arrow as they were part of the same team in the comics. So that's kind of cool. Those are all cards I'm pretty excited about.
Spider Ham is friggin' gnarly, man.
Yeah,
he's the Galactus player.
Baby.
I hate everyone that plays it. But I will be probably playing it too.
I love the token art for Spider-Ham's a 1/1, and when on reveal he turns the highest cost card in your opponent's hand into a pig that keeps its stats and keeps its cost, but it doesn't have text anymore. It's just a
body, right? Vanilla body with the same.
And be buffed by Patriot, by the way. But yeah, it's just a pig, and so it's a kind of funny little interaction card. The other two cards are more move support focused. Spider-Man 2099, looking real powerful for move. I believe he's a 4-cost 5 power. The first time he moves to a location, he destroys an enemy card there. So that seems really
so you
absurd.
Could play him. Oh, it's just the first time he moves, but still like
to a location. So if you bounce him to one spot, he'll kill
to a different
there.
location.
And then if you bounce him somewhere else, as long as he hasn't already moved there and done the thing, he can do the destroy again.
Oh my god!
And then destroy up to 3 cards. Then
that's the max value he could get, and obviously that has good synergy with Ghost Spider, right? Because she's moving the last card you played, so you play your Spider-Man 29, you move him around. Seems really strong, and especially if you can get him down on like turn 3 with Zabu.
Wow, we could actually play Miles Morales now if we wanted to.
Yeah,
for 1
he's
mana.
actually seeing more play, and we'll get to this a little later.
We've been playing a lot of Miles the last couple days.
More Miles in the past, like since the patch hit, than we've seen in the entirety of Marvel Snap existing, or at least for me. And that's pretty cool. It's nice when you see these underplayed cards kind of coming back and getting relevance.
Yeah.
And then Silk's actually the card I'm probably the most excited for. She's another one that was data mined a long time ago. We didn't know if she was going to come with this season or not, but she is. And she's a 2/5, so 2 cost 5 power. But whenever anyone plays a card at the location she's at, she moves somewhere else randomly. And this kind of seems nuts with something like Kraven, where it's like you can just keep bouncing her around, and it's you or your opponent. So the odds that someone's playing a card where
she's just going to be bouncing all over the place.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna be hilarious, but it's an interesting downside, right? Because yeah, you're getting above stats for the cost, but essentially you don't really know where it's gonna land. You can't be like, oh well, I can count on that 5 power in this one spot, because unless you lock up the location or you fill it up, like she could go anywhere. You don't know where they're gonna play cards. It's a whole.
Wait, is it only on your side though? Or could it go on their side?
She can't move to their side. She's not like Titania.
Thank God. All right.
Oh God, I don't think our brains could handle that. Titania's hard enough on her own. But I really do love the design of the card. I remember when Mysterio used to be a 2/5 back in my day, and he was really, really good. So the fact that we're getting a good statted 2/5 that has a ability that buffs an archetype. Like, I've been playing a tempo move deck after the patch, and that uses like Kraven and Jeff, and Kraven's already actually not a bad card in that deck. And man, if you add something that's bouncing all over the board and can give him a +2 every turn or every other turn, it seems pretty good. So I'm stoked for the Spider-Verse season. It's just super. It looks super good, and it's probably my favorite season.
So we're getting what 4? So Gwen, whatever.
1 season pass, 3 Series 5 cards. And then
balls, dude. That's going to be expensive.
Ghost Spider and Miles we get the variants from them in the past.
This is a good segue into our next topic. Now, the other thing that was data mined from the patch were the bundles coming out. Now, there are a lot of bundles in May and in June. I listed all the May bundles out. You can go to Snap Zone to read what those are. I don't think we want to run through them all. But there is one that I want to focus on here. And Zombies, you did a really excellent breakdown of what I think is probably, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but a
Oh, it's
bundle
controversial.
that really opened up everyone's eyes. The beautiful Beyond Compare bundle.
Mhm.
So Nate, for the low cost of $99 US, or for those of us in Canada, 140, or as Lee pointed out earlier in chat, 157 with the tax.
Jeez.
You can acquire the beautiful Beyond Compare bundle, which will net you 1.8 Series 5 cards, 10,000
Almost
tokens,
2 whole cards.
almost 2 whole cards, 10,000 collector tokens, a fugly variant of the collector is the technical
Hey.
term. It's not good.
No, it's like a D&D Dungeons and Dragons art style. It looks okay.
I don't even want to hear it. You can't see me right now because the graph is up, but I'm waving my arms
It's
wildly
ugly.
around.
It's so bad.
So this
Nah, it's
bundle, oh,
fine.
you got me there back with the waving. So the question is this worth it? And of course the answer is, of course it's not worth it. It's $100. Are you insane? But let's have this conversation relative to what things cost in Marvel Snap. So Zombies, why don't you take us through the breakdown? Because I thought this was really interesting because I still think the bundle's gross, but
Mhm.
it might actually be worth considering within certain contexts.
Yeah, I mean, mobile game pricing is gross. Full stop. That's kind of
And
where
this is
we're at, and
this is a
Snap's no
mobile game.
exception.
Yep.
And we've talked about it a bunch, but because these games can be so, I mean, there's a reason they have 3 different currencies, right? Like they try and obscure it a bit. They don't want you to. There's a reason they aren't just putting the new card in the shop and saying, "Hey, give us $100 and you get this card," because that's not a real good look. We saw it with Nexus events, right? So with this bundle, I thought it was interesting to look at because while obviously, I mean, I think a majority of the player base is just going to be like, "This is absurd. No, thank you," and that's totally fine. That's kind of how these free to play games work, right? Like, it's actually not as many people as you think that are buying all this stuff.
Sorry,
But
Zombies, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Mhm.
Do you also get this collector avatar?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay,
You,
sold. Sold. That's all I needed to hear.
you got to make
That
people look at
avatar,
it.
that avatar is so cursed. Will be so cursed. Sorry. Please
No.
continue. But it is. I'm just looking at the art right now, and like I'm recollecting you saying, "Oh no, it's like this deep." No, it's terrible.
Look,
I know
I
beauty's in
don't
the
know.
eye of the beholder, but
I
this
think
this
it's
beholder
cool.
says that variant sucks.
It's tough because the collector has a bunch of other good ones. Like I got the Dan Hip collector the other night for free, and I was just like, "Oh
S
man,
tier.
it's pretty nice." And
Yeah.
so I like but that's kind of what I'm getting to in the normally in these bundles. I mean, he's a little creepy, right? But I think that's like part of the appeal. Like it looks like like that. I don't know. Seeing the little treasure chest, it makes me think of like a mimic. Like it's that kind of style to me. But anyway, the whole reason I brought this up is because just doing the face. This is great. This is great. Um, but yeah, so like I did some comparing, right? Because these bundles,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. These bundles, we basically, we're comparing them to what exists, right? That's how we're determining value, and that's also how they kind of get you, right? Because they start with these like exorbitantly high prices, and then when they knock it down a bit or when they do something better, it gives this illusion of value, right? Like, oh wow, it's not as terrible as well, I don't want to use that analogy, but it's not as bad as it was. So, but by that sense, it's good by comparison. And
Dude, that is an abusive relationship, is what it is, right?
Isn't that
Like,
what
welcome
authoritarians
to
do?
mobile
It's like,
gaming.
well, they may have carried my uncle off to the gulag and
Yeah.
and took away all my rights, but at least I have a whole meal on the table.
Yeah, it could be worse. I could be starving with all that stuff happening. But so that's the whole thing with this is I looked at the value, I looked at what you're getting out of it. I mean, we saw this and when it leaked, we didn't see the cash price yet. So there was a part of me that was like, are they just gonna see how far they can push this? Like there was a pretty significant part of me I thought they might push the over the $100 mark because we've never seen a bundle with 10,000 tokens. significantly more. I think the highest we've seen is the upcoming one for like 4,500. We've never seen anything close to 10,000 tokens in a bundle. So I was like, oh, I don't know. They might be seeing how far they can push this, but no, they're
$100, dude.
I know.
$160 for me.
It's crazy. But so the fact of the matter is there are people who exist, believe it or not, who will pay for this. And I mean, you're listening to one of them right now, apparently.
It better come with a title that says I paid $100 for this title.
It needs to be free to play, by the way. That's the only appropriate title.
That would be amazing if they came with that title. For once we get excited over a title.
Yeah. But so I looked at the value, right? And the interesting thing about this was Token Tuesday, right? Token Tuesday has been widely celebrated as one of the best ways to get tokens, right? Now, Token Tuesday is obviously more accessible because it just uses gold. So you don't have to pay any money. You can use that gold you're saving up. And because of that, if you're just getting Token Tuesday with your free gold, you can't compare this directly. However, there are, I would say, more than a fair share amount of folks who spend their gold on other things, like they spend it on progression or they spend it on variants, and then they don't have any gold and they still want Token Tuesday, so they buy some gold to get Token Tuesday. And if you recognize yourself being mentioned here, this might be relevant to you. So with this bundle, if we compare it to Token Tuesday, which again is, I think statistically has just been the best conversion rate for tokens for the most part.
It has.
It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. It's a little bit lower, but it's almost a 1-to-1 direct translation of value of gold for tokens, which is about as good as it gets. Now, I took a look at the past Token Tuesdays as well as this upcoming one. So 3 months of Token Tuesday. If you did it for March, if you did it for April, and if you did it for the upcoming May, if you added all those things together and you saw how much it costed, you would be getting 7,600 tokens for 8,250 gold, which is just over $100 US. It's like $103 or something like that. Looking at that, if we compare the exact same thing, we're getting almost 25% more tokens. So you're getting 10K instead of 7,600. And $100 is how much 8K gold costs. So you're shaving the $3 off the top, but it's not really about the savings there. It's about you're getting 25% more value in terms of if you're a player who needs tokens, if tokens are the thing you're going after and you're spending money to buy gold to pay for your Token Tuesdays, it is objectively better value to say, hey, I will just not buy Token Tuesday for 3 months. I'll buy this instead. This is not assigning any value to the collector at all. You could hate this, much like Blutrane. You could hate this, and you could never use it, and it would still be a better value if that was how you were going about buying and spending your gold. There's a small bonus on top here with 500 gold and credits. It's not much, but when it's already that much of a better value for tokens, the fact that you're getting like a little bit of gold and credits sprinkled on top is a little bit more enticing. And hey, some people out there probably like this variant, like myself, and some of those people might even be bold enough to play the collector in their deck.
This was the price for entry into the creators program, standing for the collector.
Yeah.
Now we know what it cost you. But you know, it's funny, but before you did this breakdown, I had dismissed this as, you know, forget it, I'm not going to get this. But I've been getting the Token Tuesdays. Actually, I just skipped the last one for the first time, mainly because I became flush with the kitty cash. But I am going to seriously consider doing this, getting this, and not getting Token Tuesdays. You know, for the foreseeable future. Yeah, I don't like the variant, but you know, I want the avatars so that when I queue into Safety Blade, you know,
He has to look at it.
he has to look at it. Yeah.
No, but
you know,
it's
this is the
be
thing,
smart
right?
with it, right? Like if you're already spending money, it's an expensive game. Like I'm not saying. I think it's also the super important disclaimer. Just because like this is a comparatively better value it doesn't mean that the game shouldn't be cheaper. Like I think we've all had that discussion before, you know. But but you've got to take a break when you can get it. And if you're one of those people who is spending the money for the Token Tuesdays, like it just seems like an easy choice if you're not using the free gold and you're buying them that much.
What I thought of doing was I was gonna skip the Rian Gonzalez token bundle that's coming out this upcoming week. I might get that since I do like the cosmetic, and it's like half the collector's tokens, and I might just get that, but skip this. I don't know. I'm kind of like
there's some smaller ones coming too. Like I mean, I don't want to get into all the specifics, but the TLDR on the bundles is a lot of the 4 gold bundles right now in the near future of May and of June, and this has been the sentiment I've seen in my chat and other places, has been they're just not really that great compared to past ones. There are a few that maybe the variants sell you on, but in terms of objective value, they're not the greatest. But there are a few cash-only ones, conveniently. I wonder why those are the good ones, at smaller price points. So if you're one of probably the many people who see $100 or even more through conversion rates, and you say, wow, that's absurd, like I'm not going to do that, there are going to be some other ones that are in the lower range, kind of like the Momoko Magic one, where it was like $20 or $30, where it's still a very good value. Like there's one where it's like it's giving you almost like $50 worth of gold and like a $30 bundle or something with a bunch of other stuff. So if this is too high, and that probably is the case for most people because it's a pretty absurd amount of money, then there will be other ones. So you don't have to. It's not this or bust is the good thing. I think.
Yeah, this is the thing. All these bundles, there's so many of them, and they all tempt you, right? They all tempt us to some degree or another.
Yeah, have you seen that variant?
Which one?
The collector variant?
Yeah, that's the joke.
Oh no, but like, oh my gosh, there's so many things coming.
Yeah,
I ended up buying the Earth Day one, by the way, because the price point was low. And and like it came with a bunch of broad bucks.
Good value. Yeah,
like it was just like I don't even really like the artwork that much.
You can't not like gardening hella.
It's funny. I thought about using the avatar actually,
I'm
but
using that avatar every day. It's so good.
But if you're somebody like if you're wanting to split cards or like level up your cards or whatever, like the value was pretty good. So I don't know. I probably like there's a lot of bundles coming out. And I don't know how people afford all this stuff, but I'm glad that there's some variation.
I think the answer is most people don't, right? Most people are just picking one and then they're ignoring everything else. And that's probably the smart strategy with the game. Like, I know I'm really excited for the Ivan Tao one because it has 2 of my favorite variants ever. So even though that one is kind of almost objectively, I mean, we can see it on the chart here, it's not particularly great value for progression. Or even cosmetics. It's not particularly great value overall, but those ones have a higher value to me because they're some of my favorite arts in the game with the Venomized Thor and the Venomized Lady Sif.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah, I believe it's the Ivan Tao one.
Oh my gosh, I might have to.
They're so good, and they come together, and those are like, I love the Nullified Thor, and I was almost tempted at one point, and then I saw the Venomized, I'm like, nope.
It's so much. It's better even.
It's so good. They're so I know not everyone's into the Venomized ones, but as someone who Venom's one of my favorite
Venomized
characters,
those
so cool.
Those 2 artworks for the Thor and
some
Sif
of the best Venoms like in the whole game.
Yeah.
So good.
It's funny how different different things appeal to different people. This upcoming battle pass for June is the one that has you most excited. This one that we have presently was the one I was most excited for. You're really excited about the Venomized variants. I don't dislike them, but I won't be picking them up. So it's kind of funny how they also find a way to appeal broadly to different people. Different people get excited over different things.
Oh my god, I almost bought the freaking Angel Venomized variant, even though the card is trash, just because I like the variant.
It looks so cool, yeah. Hey, maybe they'll buff him, Copium. You never know.
Maybe he'll be the first buff, right?
I absolutely love the Venom stuff. I'm right there with you, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
all right, look, I'll put them up on the
it's-
screen for people so they can see what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
oh, they're just so freaking good. Like I have the beta Sif who is really good and I love, but God, these are so good. Like, and I can only imagine how good they're gonna look when they're like, fully split and animated, or dare I say, black and white or gold. Like, it's gonna look so good.
I
They're
will live
so
vicariously
cool.
through you. They are nice. I will concede the point. They look good. All right. Moving on to our last segment.
Oh, yes.
We wanted to spend some time with our favorite little guy, Jeff the Shark. This has been a real interesting card. It was so hyped. And then this kind of last minute wave of dissension came over. Some people, Jeff's not going to be that good. Don't buy Jeff. Jeff's bad. And then people bought him anyways. And it turned out that Jeff's pretty neat. So like most of the show, because I was lazy this week, I had ChatGPT-4 write me a summary on Jeff the Baby Land Shark, the Marvel Snap card. This is what ChatGPT-4 had to say. Jeff the Baby Land Shark is a character card in the game Marvel Snap, a digital collectible card game based on the Marvel Comics universe. Jeff is part of the Animals Assembled Season Pass that was released in April 2023. Jeff is a cute and powerful card that can be played or moved to any location, regardless of any effects that would normally prevent or discourage that. Jeff has a cost of 2 energy and a power of 3, making him a versatile and efficient card that can work well with many strategies and decks. Jeff's comic origins are from the West Coast Avengers series, where he was adopted by Gwenpool as her pet. We learned that before. Jeff is one of the most popular and adorable cards in Marvel Snap, a bit presumptuous because he was just released, and fans love his comic-inspired abilities and art. All right, so So this was a pretty good summary, but then ChatGPT-4 prompted me, would you like me to write a poem about Jeff the Baby Land Shark?
And this is why all of you stayed this far into the show.
So I had to click yes because
Oh, it's so good.
what does a Jeff the Baby Land Shark poem look like? Well, you're about to find out. A poem, Jeff the Baby Land Shark. Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He's cute and he's smart. He can go anywhere he wants, no matter how hard or how dark. Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He's loyal and he's brave. He can help you in the game with his power and his wave. Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He's friendly. He's fun. He can make you smile and laugh with his antics and his puns. Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He's awesome and he's cool. He can be your best friend if you treat him like a jewel. Then it asked me, would you like me to write a song about Jeff the Baby Land Shark? And I said yes to that, and I won't torture you by versing you through that tune. It didn't write music to it. That exceeded the AI's programming, but good grief.
It was so good. It's so good.
I mean, it's relevant, right? They touch upon the card's mechanics, the fact that he's adorable. I don't know. It was unsettling to say the least.
Tune in to ZombiesGoNomNom's YouTube channel to hear him sing the Jeff song.
Yeah,
we're
right.
not gonna be singing the song.
ChatGPT, he's gonna put me out of a job on this
put you
lore
in-
series. You were reading it, and I'm like, wow, this is really similar to the script I wrote.
And it's funny because I mean I read it and I threw it in here. I scanned it, but after watching the preview, I'm like, yeah, this is repeat content. I will say this though, the way that you presented it in the video stuck with me a lot more than
thank you.
the soulless,
AI needs to evolve a little more before it can steal my job, I guess.
I mean, they say that it's going to change the way we live our lives within the next few years. We'll see about that. But anyways, it wrote us a poem.
It was a good poem too. Like that was.
It was better than I could do. I'm not a writer, but
It was I feel like it just feels very apt to the character, which is I mean, I guess it's not that hard to do if you think about it, but it's a pretty fascinating thing that you're getting this whole description, and on top of it, it's just like, oh, would you like me to give you a poem while you're at it? It's like, wow, like, man, I'd have to prod a poem out of a person, but no, it's just handing me one on a silver platter.
Interestingly enough, with a lot of the texts that it generated, it listed Snapzone as a source, and I threw the text in a plagiarizer checker after out of curiosity, and a lot of it is lifting it straight from Snapzone. Other
Wait.
sites too.
So does someone at
Um,
Snapzone like wrote a Jeff the Baby Landshark song?
No. The poem and the
Oh,
song
I'm
were
sad.
100% originals.
I thought Safety Blade wrote a song. I got excited.
I mean,
Not yet.
not yet, but perhaps maybe getting some inspiration. So, I think what's interesting about Jeff is that, we bought him because of the cute factor, and then we started playing games with Jeff, and it turns out that, while maybe not archetype defining, kind of found himself into lots of existing decks or enabled other strategies. So we have a few different decks that we want to showcase. I don't think these are top meta decks by any stretch, but I think they do a good job of highlighting where Jeff enables a strategy that was maybe fringe or enhances an existing strategy that just kind of makes it better. There are a few surprises in here that I think have enough players and data to back up that there's some there. So let's stop dawdling here and get to the decks, or I'll start singing you the Jeff the Baby Landshark song. So
Rather a promise.
we'll call him A, we'll call him B. So the first deck you played on stream, Zombies, and I tried it too a little bit as well, and was, you look at this and you're like, what manner of madness is this? But there's something there, so tell us about it.
This is a really cool deck. So like there have been stuff like this in the past where it started out as just like kind of a good card shell. The inspiration from this actually reminds me a little bit of the old Quake deck from Quack. Quack is a player I've ran into on ladder. It's popped up in stream a few times, and they're the one person I know with like a turbo blinged out Quake deck. They were like the Quake pioneer. And this deck kind of reminds me of that deck a little bit because it seeks to leverage Shuri and a bunch of just like tempo positive plays. But this one's pretty different in the fact that we're running Moon Girl because like we have the stature package of Stature, Black Bolt, and obviously a good thing you can do is, I mean, kind of the best curve you're hoping for here is on turn 4 you play Shuri. On turn 5 you Black Bolt the Shuri lane. You discard a card from them. Is the discarded card relevant? Not a whole lot of the time, but sometimes. I've had to discard a Surfer once or twice, which is pretty sweet. Or sometimes if they are like, there are occasions when it's relevant, but you're not playing Black Bolt to interact with them, like to get rid of their card, though sometimes it's nice for Devil Dino. You're really playing it because it makes stature cost 1. And 1 cost for a 7 power is very good, as it turns out, as we've seen with Ebony Maw. It's even better when it doesn't die to a Killmonger, who happens to also be in this list. Now, obviously, not every game you're gonna be drawing Shuri into Black Bolt into Stature. So we need other stuff we can do. Arrow has been really good in this deck, because not only is she really good with the main curve we're going for, where the final turn Stature costs 1, and you can go Stature in one lane and pull them somewhere else with Arrow. But Moon Girl really adds a ton to this deck when we don't get the Shuri stuff, so we're not as all in on it. We have a bunch of good stuff we can copy here. We can copy a Demon off of the Hood. We can copy Stature to get 2 1-cost 7 things. We can copy our She-Hulk. That gives us another kind of plan of attack to play a bunch of big stuff. This deck just has a bunch of ways of playing big stuff at the end of the game to swing the game. And then it also has a very solid early game. The early game, I think, is really important to making this strategy work because it lets you not, like, you're leaning on the high power cards at the top end, but it's your low power cards that really enable them to do what they're doing. Zabu, even though we only have 2 4-cost cards, is really, really good, not just as like a tempo play, but being able to get down, specifically the Moon Girl a turn early can be really big. Armor is a much-needed protection against Shang-Chi for the Shuri stuff. Won quite a few games from just having priority, protecting my big thing on the final turn with armor. And you get the bonus of, Death Wave's back a little bit, so you shut that down a little bit. Jeff has been really good in this deck. He's just a good 2-drop. I think some people, they bought into the hype and the memes a little bit too much, and they were expecting Jeff is going to be this ridiculous card that he wins you the game through these obscure situations more often than that's actually going to happen. but it has been really nice that he can avoid otherwise very annoying locations, and the flexibility of being able to move him is just really good. Like, I think we would have seen Nightcrawler see a lot more play if Killmonger wasn't such an omnipresent force that can just blow it up, because being able to reposition your card, and then with Jeff's added effect of not having to worry about lane shutdown stuff, it's a really good effect. And then speaking of Killmonger, gives us a way to get rid of our hood. You obviously have to be careful with the demon, but a lot of decks lean on their one drops, especially the Electro ramp deck sometimes leans pretty hard on Ebony Maw and Sunspot. So the fact that you can just blow those up and swing the tempo back lets you fight for board more effectively. So even if you do get Sandmaned, it's not ideal, but usually we'll have developed enough where we can put up a bit of a fight.
Can we can we talk about Jeff super quick? Because I don't think we did that actually. We got wrapped up in the in the poetry, but
I said what he did.
Well, I just want to make sure because I haven't. I mean, but I haven't played with it, right? Because I'm poor and spent too much money on other things. But like, yeah. Anyways, but so the way that Jeff works, right, is you can play him from hand into an unplayable location, right? Like
yes.
you're like Sanctum Sanctorum or a Professor X lane, right? Or you can play him onto the board, and then you can still move him once, right? He's like a Nightcrawler, except you can also play him into. So can you? So you can play him from hand. Can I? All right, let me ask. Sorry to do this to you, but you'll know the answer. Can I play him from hand into Sanctum Sanctorum, and then move him into a Professor X lane if I wanted to do that? Like, so I can play him anywhere, and then I can also move him once anywhere.
Yeah, nothing can stop our boy Jeff here. Also, a really cool interaction with all the Sandman running around. You have to order it properly, but if you play a card, and then, like, let's say I play a Lizard, they have a Sandman out, I can play a Lizard, and then I can play my Jeff too. The Sandman effect doesn't stop him. Nothing stops Jeff. Except for if the location's actually full. But fun fact, like if you have a Space Throne that's already full, you can get Jeff right on in there. Like it's he's just very versatile, and given how many, I mean, we know Blue's favorite location, Plunder Castle. Now that's no longer as much of a worry. If you know our only 6 cost here is She-Hulk, who almost never costs 6. Well, don't worry, Jeff can get right on in there. And
I bought Jeff the Shark on the back of Plunder Castle.
Lane control's more prominent now. I think Blue mentioned earlier in the show Professor X is really making a comeback. The meta is kind of wide open, and we're seeing a lot more lane control. These storm decks, I mean, just in general, more locations have been added that are a bit more restrictive. So the fact that we have a card that not only can it move into one of those later on if our opponent tries to like pull a fast one in Professor XS. Like, you might like this, Nate, for the Galactus mirror match. You both Spider-Man each other on turn 5. Well, guess who can be played through a Spider-Man? It's Jeff Lactus. It's it's a meme, but it did really well for me the other day. And the other cool thing with Jeff, and this is not related to this deck, but Galactus, is it's a fringe thing, but you can technically use Jeff to fight for priority a bit with Galactus, because you can put him somewhere and fight for that lane if your opponent isn't really trying to contest it. And then you can just move Jeff out and then play your Galactus there. And they don't know if you have 2 open lanes. Oh, they're going to move the Jeff and play it there. They're going to play it in the middle. So it lets you fight for priority a little bit while still having some mind games of, hey, they might not know where I'm going to Galactus. It's been kind of cool.
Well, why don't you pull up the next deck, because that's actually the one that we put in here was that Jeff Lactus deck that you played.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't realize it made the cut. This one was so funny. I made a whole funny thumbnail for this one, and it was great. And I have to say, this was one of the highlights of my snapping career. It was just getting to yell, "You face Jeff Lactus," like, over and over and over again. And I played this on the day where the hot location was draw a card. Oh man, is that busted with Galactus?
Oh yeah, I agree.
It had like an 80% win rate. It was absurd. It was, and this, if they don't draw their counter, this farms the Electro deck hardcore. Like if they don't draw their Arrow or Magneto, and even then sometimes those aren't good enough because of our Doc Ock. This deck was really, really good.
So I got some bad news for you, Nate. The
What?
answer to your question
It's
from the beginning of the
both.
episode is,
I
what do I
know.
get, Jeff or Kang?
Yeah.
The
I
answer
know.
is you buy the glorious $100 collector bundle, and you buy
Both, yeah.
you buy them both.
I hate
'Cause,
you
like,
guys.
Well, I mean, look
You don't
at
actually
this.
need Kang for this deck.
No,
It's a
I don't.
disclaimer.
I actually
it's not really needed.
No, I think that Kang could be cut actually, but I understand why it's there. I saw somebody this month running Nightcrawler in a Galactus list, and I thought about it, and it's very interesting. Jeff is way better, of course, right? But the idea that you're fighting for priority, and you're also, there's a lot of mind games going on when you're playing Galactus, right?
Definitely.
Because the deck telegraphs super hard, at least to the players that are like looking for it. You're telegraphing really hard, and the idea that like on the standard like brainwave, okay, not I don't know how to describe it, right? But if I'm looking, like, I'm not paying super close attention, but I'm looking and like, oh well, my opponent's got stuff in all three lanes, I guess, you know, I don't have to worry about the Galactus. Like, then you just zoop the Nightcrawler over and drop your Galactus, and it's like, oh dang it. And so Jeff can do that, except way better. And there's been, with all these new locations coming out, it's so irritating that you many times have a location, like, you just can't, like, if 2 out of your 3 locations are bad ones,
you know where you're. They know where you're playing. That
then you're
Galactus.
telegraphed.
It only has to be one bad one, right? Because you have to put your cards somewhere.
Well,
sometimes that bad one doesn't let you play your cards there. So it's like it happens a lot. I think anyone who's played a decent map Galactus can tell you, man, there are it's kind of like Cerebro's cousin, where it's like, wow, there are a lot of locations my deck really hates, huh?
Yeah, I learned a trick. Actually, it was from a guide I read on Marvel Snap Zone. And I think it was very relevant to Galactus in particular, where if you see a safe, quote unquote, safe location, meaning safe for your Galactus, do not play your cards in it, right? Because you need to save that for your Galactus. Like, play your cards. If location 1 pops up and it's anything positive, it's draw a card, cards here, get plus whatever, cards here, die on turn 3. Like, we don't care. As long as it's not bad for us, cool. My 1 drops and 2 drops and 3 drops are going all the way to the right, or in the, you know, wherever, because the variance, especially with so many unfavorable locations, I don't want to take the risk that I'm not going to be able to play my Galactus at all.
Yeah, it can punish you. And in Galactus, that just oftentimes is like, oh, well, I just lose the game then.
Yeah.
If you're all in on it.
But I think that Jeff gets around some of that in the way that, like, I thought Nightcrawler was cute, but it's not. You
have to move the Nightcrawler there, right? Like, that's kind of the problem with
it didn't
Nightcrawler
feel
too.
good enough, right? And
it's like the fact that you can play Jeff into this lockdown location is such a big difference. Like Plunder Castle, we can use it as an example. Let's say the 3rd location is Plunder Castle. Nobody's getting to play there right away at all, because you can't play a 6-drop that early. You can't even cheat it out with like Wave, because then it costs 4. But Jeff lets you get in there, you get the priority, and then you can just move on out right when you need to.
Oh, dude, I can't believe we're spilling the secrets on the Galactus stuff. But you're so right. We shouldn't be doing this, because now we're going to start seeing it everywhere. But the priority is such a big deal in that deck, because
they can't counter you then, right? They can't Cosmo you or debris you on your big turn. And if they do, well, who cares? Like, there's only one lane now. It's not like you're playing elsewhere.
Well, and yeah, I mean, there's just mind games. And I will say the other piece here is that sometimes you need either you have to be ready to just concede, or you have to have an alternate game plan.
Yeah, that's why we see all the Nimrod versions. And admittedly, full disclaimer, I think those are almost objectively better than this version. But this version was really, really fun, and Jeff kind of overperformed my expectations. There was a neat thing, you've probably seen this line a bunch, where you go out of your way to fill up a lane, right? So that way they can't like arrow you over to it. Jeff has been helpful with that, because as you might notice in this version, we only have 1 card we're playing on turn 5 if we Electro on 3, right? And that's Doc Ock. If we don't get our Doc Ock, or maybe Kang off the top so you can cycle him for a new card, you're basically just playing one of your cheap things. And Jeff has been nice in that regard, because let's say we tempoed out a Yondu, and a Daredevil or a Yondu and an Elektra. Well, on turn 4, I can play Daredevil and I can play Jeff, and then that locks up a lane, so that way they can't pull me over with Arrow. And I could even put Jeff in a different lane and then move him on that turn so they can't pull me with Arrow. And that's actually been quite nice. I actually forgot the one thing that I didn't include in this deck, and I realized later, was Shang-Chi, who I'm sure many would argue is like a core part of Galactus. And there were times I missed him. And I do think he's almost certainly better than Spider-Man, but the Spider-Man lockout is so satisfying.
It's so easy too. You swap it for Kang, if anything.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you don't have Kang, you can totally just throw in a Shang-Chi in this deck and you will still have almost certainly an identical performance. The nice thing about Kang that I really like is people hate Galactus so much, and they always assume, or not always, but a lot of the time they assume you have it even when you don't. So Kang giving me those free opportunities to bluff snap someone and then scare them away has been a beautiful thing, not only in managing my cubes to leave when things go bad, but I get a free cube or two here or there just because I'm like, well, I can't actually win this game, but they don't know that.
I'll tell you what, when you get, especially towards the higher ranks, and you get turned to turn like 4 or 5 and your opponent snaps, unless you have like the clear win, like you just dip, right? Because I'd rather lose 1 than lose 2 or 4. So, I mean, that's gonna happen, right? I mean, it's these games where you're winning 1 and losing 2. Like anytime we're going 1 step forward, 2 steps back, the climb is brutal, and so you're gonna.
It's brutal at just 1 for 1. So God help you if you're pushing 1 back. But it's been neat. I'm so happy I played this deck because it was just an absolute like blast, and
it's very fun and it's satisfying to like. You face Jeff Lactus.
It's so satisfying. Like, it is very enjoyable. And the big thing that I love about Jeff is that with this deck, I guess I combined those two words. With this deck, I think it kind of shows that why Jeff is cool is because it's not that he's winning you the game all the time. It's that there are times he will make a game-winning difference, and he is so flexible in the amount of different decks you can run him in. Now, a lot of them are similar style, where they're just kind of like either good card piles, or we're seeing some of this move stuff come back. But there's just a wide variety of decks. Like, there are not that many great 2-drops. A lot of 2-drops kind of suck. Yeah, that's why everyone just crams Scorpion into everything, because it's like, well, if you think about it, it's pretty efficient numbers, right? You get 2 on the board, and if you minus them by three cards, like, hey, that's a 2/5. But Jeff has been really nice. I've loved that added flexibility. Also, going back to what I said at like the beginning about how getting to like bounce Kitty and replayer was fun. Getting to move Jeff around, it makes you feel like you're doing a bit more stuff. And I don't know. And the animation's amazing. The animation is so cute. It's just this
the sound my favorite is card so in a while. Cute. It's got like the splash, but then he makes this little chipmunk cat noise. Like, it's so cute. I appreciate you recording the sound effect for me earlier, by the way. It was really cute. But yeah, this is fun. And this is not going to be for everybody, but what I think we have here, and we can move on because we've got a couple other decks, but is the versatility of Jeff. And that's why I think the card is good. Not that it's good in Galactus or it's good in XYZ. It's that it's like a really good statted 2-drop.
Just a good 2-drop.
With a ton of flexibility and so many bad locations that you can play this in a tempo deck. You could play this in your Galactus. You could play this in your Thanos or your Sarah deck or whatever else. And like, hey, I could put this in my Darkhawk deck, whatever it is. Like, it's just a good card. I think for me personally, like, I feel like the Galactus list is pretty tight and it's hard to cut cards, but Jeff is fun and it's cool. So I don't know, but let's look at the next one here. Blue.
So this deck has a little bit of a story. So this deck, I found it on Untapped with, I like to scour the sites for deck lists, especially when I'm looking for ideas. And I stumbled upon this deck. It had about 60 games registered with I don't remember the win rate. It was in the high 60s, I think. High 60% win rate with a good cube return. I think it was like 0.7. And I was looking at this kind of sideways and like, there's no way this is good. This is just a pile.
You got like
And
5 different packages in this deck.
so Safety Blade was streaming, and I was just sending him decks to troll him, the bad decks, and this was the last one. He had some technical difficulties and basically had to stop streaming. And I woke up the next morning because we've got the time zone difference thing, and my inbox is full of messages, and he's like, "This deck is cracked. It's the nuts." And I was like, I messaged him. I'm like, "Are you joking, or should I be playing this?" He's like, "No, play this deck." Okay, I played the deck, and I too had a really impressive, run with it. And, could be luck of the draw, it could be variance, but I then gave it to you, Zombies, and then you had a good run with it. And so, it was kind of like, well, hold on a second. Is there something there? And I really think there is. I think that this is, it looks like a pile, like 3 different packages, but really the reason why the deck works is because you're trying to do the thing where you play wave and a bunch of cards. But if that doesn't work out, you can play your cards alongside your one allotted card into Lockjaw turn. And Miles is relevant. You've got 2 ways of proccing Miles, so you get the 1 drop there. The deck just works. Sometimes the pile works, and we had no idea who authored this deck. And finally we found out it's a content creator that goes by the name of Revis. And Revis was like, "I didn't want the cat to get out of the bag before my video went live, but I guess you guys found it." And Safety Blade wrote a little guide on Twitter. But I think this is for me, this is a really cool deck. I bought Jeff, and then I pulled Stature out of a collector's cache or reserve or whatever as soon as she was downgraded to Series 4, and this seemed like a cool way of playing both cards together. And I've been playing a lot of this, and it's just been doing quite well. You don't play this really the way that you played Lockjaw Thanos before the changes. You basically don't want to greed anything. Just play your stones out. Just play as much as you can, as soon as you can. Sometimes you'll want to greed something for wave if you think you can get away with it, but if you don't think you can or you aren't sure, just tempo things out. This deck could vomit a lot of stats out, and
A lot of them dodge Monger too, or not Monger, Shang-Chi too. I mean, we do have a few targets, but a lot of our big stuff can dodge Shang-Chi, which is pretty relevant. And I know the person who created this deck mentioned they've been toying around with putting in Arrow in the Devil Dino spot.
Yep.
Because obviously it's good with Wave. We also actually have synergy there with Miles too. And Arrow, despite her, pretty significant nerf, has still been a pretty powerful and played card.
And the topical advantage of Arrow over Dino is that she's not ongoing, because Super Skrull has become this this thing on ladder. Whether it sticks around or not really depends on Patriot and other meta considerations. But it just, despite Sandman, despite Doomwave, despite the Lockjaw nerf, despite this looking like a mess, it played really well. It was really clean. So hats off to Revis. I'm glad we found out who the creator was, so that we can give them ample credit. We've all been having a lot of fun and success with the deck, and so Nate's the Galactus enjoyer, I'm the Thanos enjoyer, and so this is what I've been messing with over the last couple days, and having fun. Imagine that, having fun playing Marvel Snap. So definitely, if you look at this deck right now on Untapped, because of everyone trying it out, it has several hundred games logged, and it still has a fairly impressive win rate and cube rate. There's another deck just like it that runs Nightcrawler instead of Jeff, which has a much lower win rate, much less played rate as well. I understand why people would play Nightcrawler if they don't have Jeff the Shark. Nightcrawler kind of has anti-synergy with Killmonger, so if I didn't have Jeff, I probably would run Wasp. Anyways,
I like that.
Really, really cool deck. And then the last deck we have here, as we get hurried along because we're fast approaching hour 3, is a deck that you featured, Zombies, in your theory crafting with one modification. The modification is Lizard over Bast, but what this is a control Sarah deck that features Hitmonkey and Jet the Shark, and really it's your classic Sarah game plan.
With the return of
Whereby,
Angela, she's back. It's been so
yep,
long.
the return of Angela. That was to play around with Jeff synergies, like play Jeff onto Angela, move Jeff out. I'm not sold on that entirely.
It's
But
okay. It's
it's
nothing to
okay.
write home about, but hey, sometimes Angela's a 2/8. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we're off in a 2/6. Bast was in here originally. I ended up cutting it because of the consistency problem, but man, when Bast hits like Monkey and Mysterio, the deck just
Oh yeah,
pops
it
off like
it juices
crazy.
it pretty hard. It's like that's the thing I found tricky with this deck, and that's why obviously Bast was in for the Lizard, because then that gives you another bad thing you can hit with it. There are a bunch of cards that do not care if you hit them with Bast, but man, the cards that do care, they get such a big boost from the Bast buff, particularly like you said, the Angela, Hitmonkey, and Mysterio are all just so good that if you hit even just one of those, you're feeling real pleased about the way things are going that game most of the time, unless there's a Sandman.
Yeah, and that's I think what's holding this deck back, honestly. Like it felt really good to play, but it's not good into Sandman. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think
you
it'll pop back up now that so we're going into the Patriot portion of the meta, right? As long
right.
as Patriot keeps populating, eventually people are going to have to stop playing as much Electro Ramp as they're playing if they don't want to get farmed by all the Patriot decks that are coming around.
And
And
you
then this is the natural boogeyman of the Patriot decks, right? Like if the meta is
Yep.
turned into an ongoing greed fest, what's the one deck that actually likes to run Enchantress? It's usually Sarah.
Yeah, and the Enchantress obviously is really strong into ongoings. Cut Scarlet Witch, you could put her back in for Angela if you want. There's a lot of flexibility in here, I think. Um, Against Sandman, you basically want to try and like get Mysterio and Monkey out before they Sandman. So you're kind of going for a suboptimal line, which can oftentimes come up short. So if you're seeing a lot of Sandman, a lot of Galactus, if you're Infinite and you don't care, then it's all good. But there's probably other decks that kind of pair better into those, like some of the other ones that we featured before this. I always like to feature a good Sarah deck. I don't know. It's just a play pattern that I find
Sarah's
very
fun.
enjoyable.
She's also always been like, I mean, maybe not in this particular version we're showing, but I feel like Sarah's always been a budget player's best friend, because from launch until now, I've always been able to say about Sarah. Now, there may have been some ups and downs in terms of just how good she was, but it's always been like, hey, I'm new to Pool 3. What are the cards I should go for? And at launch, it was literally like two cards. It was Sarah and it was Destroyer. And now I'd probably have to think about it more, but Sarah is still right on up there, because if you look at this list, we have, I mean, maybe not this version with Jeff and Hitmonkey, but
Right.
generally, you can be very effective with a Sarah deck that has nothing more than Pool 2 and below cards. And then you really only need, one or two upgrades to it, Mysterio probably being the biggest one initially. And then you've got yourself a very functional deck. Like it helps you get out of that early Pool 3 hell where you feel like you're going up against stuff that you're not used to seeing, and the card quality is way better than what you have access to. And I think that's what's always been great about Sarah, is it really helps early players, and it's just a very satisfying play pattern. I think it's just a play style people very much enjoy. You're playing a lot of cards, you're reacting to the opponent, so you have to think a lot more about what you're doing, because you're not just you're slamming the biggest dude. And that's why it's always been a favorite for me.
Yeah, this and probably Thanos, the two decks that I've probably just played the most, just because I find them so much fun. Yeah, and Jeff works well in here. Again, completely unnecessary. But the Scarlet Witch got cut. Probably still want a runner, but like the thing is that on
There's just a lot
lanes,
of cards you want to run in this deck, right?
yeah.
Like you can
But
kind of take your pick in the 2-drop slot.
Jeff kind of solves the same problems somewhat insofar as
sometimes.
that you can like get rid of instead of getting rid of an unfavorable lane, you can get them into a lane you can't get into. This deck really doesn't like locations that you can't play. It certainly doesn't like Plunder Castle. But what Jeff can't do is like snipe the game from a limbo or something like that, which can be, relevant.
Yeah, so different things, but I
Mhm.
have found that between that one really annoying location where you can't play like 3 or less cost, and between the amount of lockdown decks going around, like I've really liked Jeff in the Sarah Shell. It's just you get people, and maybe it's because Jeff is a newer card, so most people aren't expecting you to have it. But man, when you get someone in their Professor X or their Storm Lane, and they think, like, I had a game where all like 2 of the locations were like lockdown locations, and I stormed the third one, and they were winning tiebreakers, and I got them to go to the end, and I hit them with the little I messed up emoji, and then I just Jeffed them on the final turn, and they stayed in, and it was glorious.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I've been very pleased with my Jeff purchase. Again, it's so unnecessary, but it's just been a lot of fun to experiment. It's funny because the last time we kind of got baited, you and I bought Ghost Zombies, and we're like, Ghost is gonna be the nuts in Sarah, and
We
then
were
like
excited
after
for
like
it.
one play session, we're like,
It's bad, it's Sarah.
it's not good.
It's
So this time, is he necessary? No, but it works. It actually works this time, so that's pretty cool.
yeah,
Anyways,
it's
guys,
good.
we've been going now for over 3 hours. We always have so much to talk about. I think that's just a feature of only meeting up twice monthly. So when we go hard. But thinking that maybe it might be a good time to wrap. Of course, in the theme of me letting ChatGPT-4 do my homework, I had ChatGPT-4 write the outro, just like I had them write the intro. So I'm going to read the outro it wrote, and then I'll kick it over to you guys to share your socials and all that. And again, I must remind you that these are not my words. This is the words of artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Wow, what a mind-blowing episode of Born to be Cosmo Marvel Snap podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive and got some juicy nuggets of information and speculation. If you did, please show us some love by leaving us a 5-star review and a glowing comment and spreading the word to your friends and family. The family part. You can also connect with us on Twitter for more awesome content. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, keep it Cosmo. I didn't read that with a straight face.
We have to. I think we have to start including that. Keep it Cosmo.
Yeah, that's going to be the catchphrase now. Keep it Cosmo. It's like you can tell they like took every single like outro from like every stream and podcast and like made this amalgam. Yeah. By the way, if you do want to leave us a review or subscribe, we would be grateful, but I would never solicit it so blatantly and aggressively like they did here. They were right about one thing though. We did do a deep dive. So we hope you all enjoy the long show format. By the end, I can barely string a coherent sentence. And I think we're going to maybe stick around and play some games after. But before that, Zombies, why don't you share with these fine individuals where they can find you online and social media, etc.
Yeah. So if you're new to the show or new to the stuff I do, I'm doing full-time Marvel Snap content over on YouTube as well as Twitch. YouTube is my primary focus, and I do pretty much daily stuff over there, including our much anticipated Jeff lore episode. Hopefully definitely going up tomorrow. Surely it won't be delayed again. But no, it's just about done. But yeah, so if you're looking for more Marvel Snap stuff, you can find me over there on YouTube, ZombiesGoNomNom, same as it's written here on the screen. Twitch, due to a minor inconvenience, has a slightly different name where it's Zombies with a Z at the end of it. And someday I'm sure I'll reach adequate status in the eyes of Jeff Bezos to where I can change that. Today is not that day. So that's that link for the time being, and you can find me over on Twitter as well, where I usually just post little things, a lot of deck lists, and trying to get back on the meme train. A lot of people really enjoyed the, like 24 days of posting Shuri memes I did until they finally nerfed that deck. And
Was
now
it that long? Jeez.
it was really, I was running out of material. It was, I thought it was going to be a fun little thing I did for a week or two, and it ended up being the better part of a month. Oh my God. But I digress. And now the Shuri meme stocks are down, and it's all Jeff memes. Jeff
love it.
meme
I
stocks
love
are
it.
up. So follow over on Twitter for that kind of stuff. But and of course you can find me here every other weekend doing the show with these lovely gentlemen.
Thank you. Nate, where can folks find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at NateWolfeTCG. It's NateWolfeTCG. Also, I'm part of the Born to Be Wild podcast, doing a Wild Hearthstone podcast every Friday evening here on this channel, and having good fun with my buddies Hydralisk and Electric Sheep City, and a lot of times we have guests on and stuff. Blutrane been on very frequently, and have fun doing that. Doing this show every other weekend. It's a lot of fun as well, and yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for making that amazing intro.
Oh gosh, that was pretty fun. Yeah, if you guys missed it, I'll play.
We got to
again
hear it one
afterwards.
more time at the end. Yeah.
All right.
It's so
yeah,
good.
that's pretty good. It was fun.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter, and of course, once in a while, I'll moonlight on Born to Be Wild, the sister show of Born to Be Cosmo, and the pod that got everything started, that we borrowed the namesake from, and Twitch channel, and Nate Wolf from. Yeah, and that's it. So remember, guys, before we listen to that intro one more time, if you ever doubt yourself on ladder, you just need to do one thing to regain your confidence. Keep it Cosmo.
Yeah. Keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Enough said,
wait.
bub.
Yeah.
All right, here's the intro.
Oh, snap.
The sound effects nail it. It adds so much.